Is Halloween just a harmless tradition, or does it mask something far more sinister? Today, we delve into the forgotten origins of this holiday, where ancient Celtic rituals hint at a world beyond our modern understanding. This video explores Samhain, the ancient Celtic festival from which Halloween evolved, a time when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead was believed to thin, allowing spirits to roam freely. But Samhain was far more than just a harvest festival. It was a spiritual event, steeped in practices that could be both awe-inspiring and deeply terrifying, hinting at connections to the spirit world that many have long forgotten or perhaps intentionally suppressed. What truths lie buried beneath the layers of candy and costumes? Prepare to uncover the true, often overlooked origins of Halloween by exploring the specific rituals and beliefs associated with Samhain, from divination practices designed to glimpse the future to the fiery bonfires meant to ward off malevolent entities, and even the possible role of sacrifices and feasts dedicated to the dead. You will learn about the true purpose of Samhain bonfires and the terrifying entities they were meant to appease, and you might find that these ancient practices are more relevant and shocking than you ever imagined. Understanding these ancient Samhain rituals is crucial to truly understanding Halloween's origins and its enduring impact on modern society. These rituals offer a fascinating and perhaps unsettling glimpse into how people of the time understood the world, death, and the afterlife, and how these beliefs continue to resonate in ways both obvious and subtle even today. Is it possible that when celebrating Halloween, we are unconsciously participating in something we don't fully understand? It's easy to see Halloween as just a fun excuse to dress up and get free candy, a lighthearted holiday far removed from the concerns of the ancient world. However, our continued fascination with Halloween may be rooted in a deeper, perhaps subconscious, connection to the ancient beliefs and fears that shaped Samhain, echoing through the centuries and lingering just beneath the surface of our modern celebrations. While some may dismiss the idea of sinister origins, exploring these traditions can shed light on the beliefs and worldview of the Celts, and potentially even on aspects of ourselves. Let's delve into the heart of Samhain to discover the ancient rituals that gave rise to Halloween and uncover the dark secrets that have been buried for centuries. Now let's delve into the heart of Samhain, exploring the specific rituals and beliefs that laid the foundation for modern Halloween traditions. This exploration isn't merely a recounting of historical events. It's an unveiling of often overlooked, potentially darker aspects of a festival far removed from simple harvest celebrations, a journey into the very soul of the Celtic worldview. We will uncover the practices that truly defined Samhain, including divination, bonfires, and feasts for the dead, and possibly even explore the role of animal sacrifices. But remember, this section focuses not just on what the Celts did, but on what they believed, the intangible forces that drove their actions. Samhain held a paramount position in the Celtic calendar, not merely as a marker of seasonal change, but as the Celtic New Year. This pivotal point marked the end of summer's bounty and the arduous beginning of winter, a time of both transition and profound reflection. It was a period of immense practical importance as communities gathered the harvest's final fruits and meticulously prepared for the impending winter months. Yet, Samhain transcended mere agricultural pragmatism. The Celts, inhabiting regions spanning from modern-day Ireland and Great Britain to parts of continental Europe, believed that during this liminal time, the veil separating the worlds of the living and the dead thinned, creating a conduit for heightened spiritual activity. This belief carried significant implications, offering a unique opportunity to connect with revered ancestors while simultaneously stirring fears of malevolent spirits seeking passage into the world of the living. The end of summer and the start of winter had great implications on the lifestyle of the Celts, and the importance of remembering those who had died in the past year only heightened the sense of reverence, remembrance, and even fear. The core rituals practiced during Samhain were multifaceted, each serving a distinct purpose in the Celtic worldview. Divination, for instance, wasn't mere fortune-telling. It was a vital means of foretelling the future, seeking guidance from the spirit world and attempting to exert some semblance of control over an uncertain existence. Forms of divination such as cleromancy, the casting of lots, and augury, the interpretation of omens from animal behavior, were common. Bonfires, blazing against the encroaching darkness, held significance that extended beyond mere practical necessity. While they provided warmth and light as the days grew shorter, they also served as symbolic acts, warding off evil spirits, honoring the sun's diminishing power, and potentially serving as pyres for sacrificial offerings. Bones may have been burned, not just as refuse, but as a way to symbolically cleanse and purify the land. Feasts for the dead were somber yet essential gatherings, designed to honor ancestors, appease wandering spirits, and maintain the delicate connection between the living and those who had passed beyond the veil. Food may have been left out, not just as a gesture of respect, but as a vital offering to sustain spirits on their journey. But what about the more controversial aspects of Samhain? Was animal sacrifice practiced, and if so, what role did it play in these ancient rituals? The potential for this practice and the purposes it may have served cannot be ignored. Animal sacrifices, if performed, could have been intended to ensure a bountiful harvest in the coming year, a desperate plea to the gods for continued sustenance. Specific examples of these rituals, gleaned from historical and archaeological evidence, paint a vivid picture of Samhain practices. Divination rituals often involved reading omens in the flight patterns of birds, interpreting dreams, and consulting with druids, the Celtic priestly class, believed to possess profound insight into the spirit world. The use of nuts or apples in divination rituals was also common, with the cracking of nuts in a fire or the peeling of apples seen as ways to foretell the future of relationships. But what methods of prediction did the Celts employ, and what specific sources describe these practices? Archaeological evidence reveals the existence of massive bonfires, constructed from specific types of wood and fueled by animal bones and other offerings. These bonfires weren't just randomly assembled pyres. They related directly to community identity and even territorial borders, with different tribes or villages maintaining their own sacred flames. Historical accounts detail feasts held in honor of ancestors, describing the consumption of specific types of food, such as roasted meats and seasonal vegetables, and the performance of rituals designed to commune with the departed. The practice of leaving offerings of food and drink at gravesites was also widespread, a tangible expression of remembrance and respect. These ancient meals share a striking resemblance to modern meals held during celebrations like the Day of the Dead, highlighting the enduring human need to honor and connect with those who have passed. The discovery of animal remains at ritual sites, often bearing unusual markings or patterns, suggests that animal sacrifices may have indeed been a part of Samhain rituals. While evidence remains limited and open to interpretation, the possibility of such sacrifices cannot be dismissed. And what of human sacrifice? While far more controversial, some scholars suggest that it may have occurred under extreme circumstances, perhaps to appease powerful deities or avert impending disaster. But what was the deeper meaning and significance of these rituals? Divination, beyond simply predicting the future, provided guidance, reassurance, and a sense of control in an uncertain world. It connected directly to Celtic cosmology and their beliefs about fate, suggesting that while the future may be predetermined, it could still be influenced through ritual and interaction with the spirit world. Bonfires, as symbols, represented purification, protection, and the cyclical nature of life and death. They served as communal gatherings, fostering social bonding and reinforcing a shared identity in the face of the encroaching darkness. Feasts for the dead served to honor ancestors, strengthen family ties, and maintain a vital connection to the past. They reflected deep-seated Celtic beliefs about the afterlife and reincarnation, suggesting that death was not an end, but a transition to another realm. And animal sacrifices, their purpose, if they indeed occurred, may have been to serve as offerings to the gods, seeking favor, ensuring fertility, or appeasing malevolent spirits lurking in the shadows. Such sacrifices would have been deeply intertwined with broader Celtic religious beliefs and practices, reflecting a worldview where humans, gods, and spirits were interconnected and mutually dependent. These rituals, steeped in symbolism and tradition, tied Celtic society together, reinforcing their shared beliefs, fears, and hopes. While these ancient rituals may seem far removed from our modern Halloween celebrations, their influence can still be seen in many of our familiar customs, lingering like echoes from a distant past. In the next section, we will explore how the tradition of carving jack-o'-lanterns, for example, can be traced back to these ancient Samhain practices. It's important to acknowledge that not everyone interprets Samhain as sinister. Some scholars view Samhain primarily as a harvest festival with limited spiritual significance, downplaying the more sensational aspects of the rituals. It's also important to acknowledge that some view these rituals as primarily symbolic, not literal, acts of violence or appeasement. However, understanding these rituals, even the potentially darker interpretations, is vital to fully comprehend Halloween's roots. Even if some interpretations are contested, exploring these rituals provides valuable insights into the beliefs and worldview of the ancient Celts, offering a glimpse into a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead were far more permeable than we might imagine today. This exploration reveals a past where ritual and belief intertwined, shaping the very fabric of daily life, and perhaps, in ways we are only beginning to understand, continuing to influence our own modern celebrations. So, are we truly celebrating a harmless holiday, or are we unconsciously tapping into something far more ancient and powerful? While modern Halloween may seem far removed from Samhain, this section unveils the surviving echoes of ancient rituals in our contemporary celebrations. Many familiar Halloween customs are, in fact, diluted or adapted versions of ancient Samhain practices. But how did these transformations occur, and what forces shaped the evolution of Samhain into the Halloween we know today? To understand this evolution, we must consider the significant influence of Christianity and other cultural factors on Samhain traditions. The Roman influence, with its own festivals honoring the dead, played a role in shaping the early development of Samhain. But the most profound impact came from the Catholic Church, particularly with the establishment of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. All Saints' Day, originally celebrated in May, was moved to November 1st in the 8th century, a strategic decision that many believe was intended to supplant the pagan festival of Samhain. All Souls' Day, observed on November 2nd, was dedicated to praying for the souls of the dead, further reinforcing the themes of remembrance and the afterlife. This merging of Christian and pagan traditions led to a gradual shift in emphasis, with some of the more overtly spiritual or potentially sinister aspects of Samhain being toned down or reinterpreted within a Christian framework. The impact of immigration and cultural exchange on the development of Halloween in America cannot be overstated. As different ethnic groups brought their own customs and beliefs to the New World, Halloween became a melting pot of traditions, blending Celtic paganism with European folklore and American ingenuity. But was this a peaceful merging or a deliberate attempt to erase the older ways? The shift from Celtic paganism to Christian-influenced folk traditions marked a significant turning point in the history of Samhain, gradually transforming it into the secular holiday we celebrate today. This transition was not always smooth or seamless, as elements of pagan belief persisted within the new Christian framework. The belief in spirits and the importance of honoring the dead remained central to the celebration, even as the rituals and practices associated with Samhain were modified or replaced. This is where the lines between pagan and Christian-influenced folk traditions start to blur. As pagan rituals waned, more of the Celtic population started to adopt the traditions of the church, all the while holding on to some of the ancient customs that had defined their lives for centuries. This complex interplay of beliefs is a key element for understanding the evolution of Samhain into the modern celebration of Halloween. Now let's define some specific Halloween traditions and explore their potential Samhain origins, beginning with trick or treating. Trick or treating, the beloved practice of children dressing up in costumes and asking for candy, has possible roots in souling or mumming. Souling was a medieval custom where poor people would go door to door offering prayers for the dead in exchange for soul cakes, a type of sweet biscuit. This practice, sanctioned by the church, was intended to provide spiritual comfort to the departed and material support to the living. Mumming, on the other hand, was a more secular tradition involving groups of masked performers who would travel from house to house, offering entertainment in exchange for food or money. What started as people going door to door and receiving soul cakes or money turned into children dressing in costume and asking for candy. But did these practices carry a deeper spiritual meaning beyond the surface exchange? Costumes, another central element of Halloween, also have roots in Samhain rituals. During Samhain, people would dress up as spirits or animals to disguise themselves from malevolent entities believed to roam the earth on this night. The Celts believed that by disguising themselves, they could avoid being recognized or harmed by these spirits. The use of masks was particularly important, as it allowed individuals to conceal their identity and blend in with the spirit world. What began as an attempt to trick malevolent entities evolved into a modern tradition of dressing up as fictional characters, superheroes, or even humorous figures. But does the act of wearing a costume still carry a subconscious connection to the ancient belief in spirits and the need for disguise? Jack-o'-lanterns, the iconic symbols of Halloween, trace their origins back to turnip lanterns used during Samhain to ward off evil spirits. The Celts would carve faces into turnips or other root vegetables and place them near their homes to scare away malevolent entities believed to be wandering the earth. The tradition of carving faces into vegetables evolved over time, with different cultures adopting their own unique styles and techniques. In America, pumpkins eventually replaced turnips as the vegetable of choice due to their abundance and ease of carving. But is the modern jack-o'-lantern simply a decorative symbol, or does it still retain some of its ancient power to ward off evil? Folklore, historical accounts, and anthropological studies offer compelling evidence that supports the connections between Samhain rituals and Halloween traditions. Historical accounts of souling practices in Europe describe the types of food offered, the prayers recited, and the role of the church in either promoting or suppressing these practices. Some accounts suggest that souling was a way for the church to co-opt pagan traditions and Christianize them, while others view it as a genuine expression of Christian piety. Examples of Celtic beliefs about spirits and the need to disguise oneself during Samhain can be found in various historical texts and archaeological findings. The use of animal skins and other natural materials in costume construction is well documented, suggesting that costumes were not merely decorative, but also functional, providing a form of camouflage or protection. The tradition of using turnip lanterns in Ireland and Scotland is supported by historical evidence, including descriptions of their construction and purpose. These lanterns were often placed on windowsills or near doorways to ward off evil spirits or guide lost souls. As the tradition spread to America, pumpkins replaced turnips because they were more abundant. But how much of this is just folk tales, and how much is factual, historical evidence? Analyzing the transformation and symbolism of these traditions reveals their deeper cultural meanings and implications. The shift from religious practice to secular activity in trick or treating reflects a broader trend in modern society, where religious beliefs and practices have become increasingly separated from daily life. The themes of community, generosity, and the blurring of social boundaries are also evident in trick-or-treating. Candy, as a symbol, represents reward and social exchange, reflecting the importance of reciprocity and social harmony. Costumes, on the other hand, serve multiple psychological and social functions, including role-playing, self-expression, and the exploration of identity. They allow individuals to experiment with different personas, express their creativity, and challenge social norms. The cultural significance of different types of costumes, such as ghosts, monsters, and superheroes, reflects our collective fears, aspirations, and values. Jack-o'-lanterns, as symbols, represent protection, guidance, and the triumph over darkness. Their connection to folklore about spirits, demons, and the wandering soul reinforces their role as guardians and protectors. They symbolize the light that guides us through the darkness, both literally and metaphorically. How many children who dress up and trick or treat today are aware of these ancient traditions? While Halloween has become largely secularized, the ancient traditions of Samhain continue to be celebrated by modern pagans and Wiccans. In the next section, we will explore how modern pagans are reviving and reinterpreting Samhain rituals in the 21st century. For them, Samhain is far more than nostalgia or a fun excuse to dress up in costumes. It's a spiritual practice that connects them to the ancient world and the cycles of nature. Some argue that the connections between Samhain and Halloween are largely speculative, with little concrete evidence to support them. It's important to acknowledge that many Halloween traditions have multiple influences, and it's impossible to isolate Samhain as the sole source. But even if some interpretations are contested, exploring the potential links between Samhain and Halloween enriches our understanding of cultural history. Even without explicit proof, the fact that these customs have endured for centuries suggests that they tap into something fundamental about the human experience. The core themes of honoring the dead, warding off evil, and celebrating the changing seasons remain, regardless of their specific origins. Is it possible that these customs are an echo of a truth we have long since forgotten? To understand how the echoes of Samhain reverberate in the 21st century, we shift our focus from Halloween's secular celebrations to the vibrant spiritual practices of modern paganism. Samhain isn't relegated to history. It's a living tradition, a sacred time actively honored and reinterpreted by Wiccans and pagans across the globe. While Halloween has become a largely secular holiday focused on costumes and candy, Samhain remains a potent spiritual observance, a time for honoring ancestors, connecting with the spirit world, and contemplating the cyclical nature of life and death. As we delve into these modern celebrations, we will examine the tangible differences and the commonalities among celebrations and beliefs, uncovering the rich tapestry of contemporary pagan practices. The modern pagan movement, a tapestry of diverse traditions, traces its roots to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, emerging from a confluence of esoteric currents, folklore revivals, and a growing dissatisfaction with mainstream religions. Key figures like Gerald Gardner, often considered the father of Wicca, played a pivotal role in shaping modern paganism, drawing inspiration from ceremonial magic, folklore, and his own spiritual experiences. Aleister Crowley, the controversial occultist, also exerted a significant influence, with his emphasis on individual will and esoteric knowledge resonating with many early pagans. Margaret Murray's The Witch Cult in Western Europe, while largely discredited by modern scholars, fueled the popular imagination and contributed to the romanticized view of ancient pagan religions. This revival of interest in ancient paganism and the development of Wicca and other neo-pagan traditions led to a wide range of practices and beliefs, making it more of a diverse movement rather than one singular practice. However, how did these historical figures shape the modern pagan view of Samhain? Central to modern pagan celebrations of Samhain is the concept of the Wheel of the Year, a cyclical calendar that marks the changing seasons and the ebb and flow of life, death, and rebirth. Samhain, positioned at the end of October, marks a pivotal point in this cycle, representing the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time of darkness, introspection, and transition. It is believed that on this night, the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead thins, allowing for easier communication with spirits, ancestors, and other supernatural entities. This belief underscores the importance of ancestor veneration during Samhain, a practice that involves honoring and remembering deceased loved ones, seeking their guidance, and acknowledging their continued presence in the lives of the living. Pagans may construct altars dedicated to their ancestors, offer them food and drink, and engage in rituals to connect with their spirits. But do all modern pagans believe in this thinning of the veil? Modern pagan celebrations of Samhain often involve a variety of rituals and practices designed to honor ancestors, connect with the spirit world, and celebrate the cyclical nature of life and death. One common practice is the construction of altars dedicated to ancestors, deities, and the spirits of the season. These altars may be adorned with photographs of deceased loved ones, candles, crystals, herbs, and offerings of food and drink, such as apples, pumpkins, and wine. Guided meditations are also frequently used to connect with ancestors, explore the spirit world, and gain insight into the future. These meditations often involve visualizing deceased loved ones, journeying to the spirit realm, or seeking guidance from spirit guides. Many pagans and Wiccans turn to divination practices, employing tools such as tarot cards, runes, and scrying mirrors to foretell the future and seek guidance from the spirits. The results of these divination practices are then interpreted to provide insight into personal challenges, relationship issues, or other areas of concern. But how do modern pagans keep the lines of communication open, and do they ever close them? The rituals and practices performed by modern pagans during Samhain hold profound meaning and significance, offering a pathway to personal connection, spiritual growth, and a deeper understanding of the world around them. The focus on personal connection and spiritual growth can be interpreted as a means of finding meaning and purpose in life, providing a sense of empowerment and self-discovery. By connecting with their ancestors, exploring the spirit world, and engaging in divination practices, pagans seek to gain insight into their own lives, overcome personal challenges, and develop a stronger sense of self. These rituals also serve to honor the past, maintain cultural traditions, and connect to a sense of history. By remembering and celebrating their ancestors, pagans reaffirm their connection to the past and preserve cultural knowledge for future generations. But do these personal connections help pagans connect to the world at large? While modern paganism offers a path to spiritual connection, personal growth, and community, it's important to be aware of the potential dangers and misconceptions surrounding these practices. As we've seen, Samhain rituals often involve connecting with spirits and seeking guidance from the spirit world, activities that can carry certain risks if not approached with caution and respect. This leads us to the importance of responsible practice and the potential consequences of engaging in unsupervised or ill-informed rituals. What can be done to prevent these risks? It's important to emphasize that the vast majority of modern pagans are peaceful, responsible individuals who practice their beliefs with respect and integrity. The association of paganism with Satanism is a harmful stereotype based on ignorance and prejudice. Most pagans have nothing to do with Satanism, and their practices are often focused on connecting with nature, honoring ancestors, and promoting personal growth. However, are there aspects of these traditions that those outside of the pagan community might find bizarre? By exploring the beliefs and practices of modern pagans, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the enduring power of ancient traditions and the human quest for spiritual meaning. Despite the differences in time and context, both ancient Celts and modern pagans share a common desire to connect with the spirit world, honor their ancestors, and celebrate the cyclical nature of life and death. This leads us to the reaffirmation that it is important to learn what one can before diving into any spiritual or religious practice. But is it really that simple to connect with your ancestors and the spirit world, or could there be a hidden danger to the practices? While modern paganism offers a connection to ancient traditions and a path to spiritual growth, this section unveils the potential dangers and misconceptions that can arise from unsupervised rituals, misinformation, and a lack of proper understanding. It's essential to approach these practices with caution, respect, and a healthy dose of skepticism. This is not to paint all pagan practices as inherently dangerous, but rather to offer a realistic and balanced perspective, highlighting the importance of responsible engagement and informed decision-making. To understand how public perception of paganism has been shaped, it's crucial to examine historical, occult scares, and moral panics related to witchcraft, Satanism, and other esoteric practices. One notable example is the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and 1990s, a period of widespread fear fueled by sensationalized media reports and unsubstantiated allegations of satanic ritual abuse. This panic led to numerous false accusations, wrongful convictions, and a general atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. The McMartin preschool trial, where teachers were accused of engaging in satanic rituals with children, exemplifies the hysteria of this era. This historical event reveals how a lack of correct information and the spread of misinformation can lead to gross misinterpretations of religions and spiritual practices. Such events have profoundly shaped public perceptions of paganism and the occult, often conflating them with evil or dangerous forces. To delve deeper into the potential pitfalls, it's essential to define key concepts related to the dangers of pagan practices. Unsupervised rituals, for instance, refer to ceremonies or practices performed without proper training, guidance, or understanding of the potential consequences. These rituals can involve invoking spirits, manipulating energies, or altering states of consciousness, all of which can carry inherent risks. Experienced practitioners are crucial to provide support, ensure safety, and offer guidance. Then there are the entities and energies that pagans believe they can interact with, including spirits, deities, and other non-physical beings. While these encounters can be positive and transformative, they can also be negative, resulting in fear, paranoia, or other adverse effects. Therefore, setting boundaries and protections when working with these entities is extremely important. Finally, it's also worth considering the psychological impacts that can arise from engaging in intense spiritual practices, such as altered states of consciousness, emotional release, and heightened sensitivity. These experiences can be overwhelming or destabilizing, especially for individuals with pre-existing mental health conditions. This underscores the importance of grounding techniques, mental health awareness, and seeking professional help when needed. However, how does one come to the conclusion that something is dangerous? To illustrate the potential dangers of irresponsible pagan practices, let's consider a few cautionary tales and real-life incidents. One individual, whom we'll call Sarah, experienced a severe mental health crisis after engaging in unsupervised rituals involving psychoactive substances. Sarah, who had a history of anxiety and depression, believed that these substances would help her connect with the spirit world and gain spiritual insights. However, the experience triggered a psychotic episode, leading to hospitalization and long-term mental health treatment. This emphasizes the importance of seeking professional help when needed. Another individual, whom we'll call Mark, related a story of a negative encounter with a spirit during a solitary ritual. Mark, who was inexperienced in spirit work, attempted to invoke a powerful deity without proper preparation or protection. During the ritual, Mark reported feeling a malevolent presence, experiencing intense fear and paranoia, and suffering from nightmares and sleep paralysis for weeks afterward. Such cases highlight the importance of discernment and protection when working with spirits. And finally, there's the risk of financial exploitation, as seen in the case of Lisa, who was exploited by an individual claiming to be a powerful psychic. Lisa, who was vulnerable and seeking guidance in her life, paid the psychic thousands of dollars for readings and rituals that ultimately proved to be fraudulent and ineffective. This emphasizes the importance of critical thinking and skepticism when engaging with individuals who claim to have special powers or knowledge. But how does one protect themselves from these potential dangers? Given these potential risks, it's essential to analyze them and identify ways to mitigate them. Responsible practice is paramount, including thorough research, ethical conduct, and respect for boundaries. This entails avoiding practices that could harm oneself or others, such as engaging in dangerous rituals, using psychoactive substances irresponsibly, or manipulating others for personal gain. Seeking guidance from experienced teachers, mentors, or elders within the pagan community can also provide valuable support and ensure safety. Joining reputable pagan organizations or covens can offer access to experienced practitioners, structured training, and a supportive community. Furthermore, it's crucial to recognize when it may be best to stay away from certain practices altogether. This involves exercising critical thinking, self-awareness, and discernment, recognizing one's own limitations and vulnerabilities, and avoiding practices that feel unsafe or uncomfortable. But is it always necessary to stay away from certain practices? While we've explored the potential dangers within modern paganism, the themes of death, spirits, and the unknown continue to resonate in our culture, shaping our fears, fantasies, and artistic expressions. These themes are reflected in popular culture through movies, books, and television shows that explore the supernatural, the afterlife, and the mysteries of the universe. As we move forward, we will see how these ideas have been woven into the fabric of art, literature, and film, even beyond the realm of pagan belief. How else do these pagan themes manifest in today's world? It's important to reiterate that the vast majority of modern pagans are peaceful, responsible individuals who practice their beliefs with respect and integrity. The idea that negative experiences are representative of the entire movement is simply untrue. While cautionary tales exist, they are not representative of the experiences of most pagans who find personal fulfillment and community through their practices. Judging individuals based on their actions, not on stereotypes or generalizations, is absolutely necessary. It is equally important to reiterate the importance of tolerance and understanding when it comes to different religious or spiritual beliefs. Are there, perhaps, parallels to be found across different belief systems? By approaching paganism with respect, awareness, and a commitment to responsible practice, we can avoid potential dangers and appreciate the richness and diversity of these spiritual traditions. Engaging with paganism in a way that is both respectful and informed requires seeking knowledge, guidance, and community support while remaining mindful of the potential risks and limitations. Education and preparation before practice cannot be stressed enough. By exploring paganism responsibly and thoughtfully, one can potentially find a path to personal growth, spiritual connection, and a deeper understanding of the world. However, where do we see the lasting influence of Samhain in popular culture? While previous sections explored the more commonly known traditions of Samhain, this section unveils a darker side, one that delves into the potentially dangerous rituals aimed at manipulating dark forces or causing harm. This exploration shifts our focus from general practices to those that were potentially harmful, malevolent, or fear-inducing. Are we prepared to confront the shadows of Samhain? To understand the sinister side of Samhain, we must understand the darker aspects of Celtic spirituality, a world where spirits could be vengeful and curses were a feared reality. The Celtic view of the afterlife was not always a comforting one. It was believed that spirits could remain trapped between worlds, lingering near their former lives, or seeking vengeance for perceived wrongs. These spirits were not necessarily benevolent ancestors offering guidance and protection, but rather potentially malevolent entities capable of causing harm to the living. The power to interact with these spirits, for good or ill, rested primarily with the Druids, the priestly class of Celtic society, and other skilled practitioners who had deep knowledge of the natural and supernatural worlds. They were believed to possess the ability to not only heal and protect, but also to curse and inflict misfortune. To disrupt the balance between the worlds, even with good intentions, could have serious repercussions. This belief in reciprocity and balance was central to Celtic spirituality, and it is crucial to understanding the potential for sinister practices during Samhain. After all, what could happen if the doors between the worlds were opened too wide? During Samhain, the thinning of the veil between the worlds wasn't always seen as an opportunity for joyous communion. It also presented a time when malevolent forces could be unleashed. This led to the potential practice of sinister rituals, and while not all sources agree on the prevalence or nature of these practices, historical accounts and folklore suggest that they may have occurred. One such practice is that of human sacrifice. Though very uncommon, some historical accounts suggest that, in times of extreme crisis, human sacrifice may have been performed to appease particularly wrathful deities or avert impending disaster. These sacrifices were often seen as a last resort, a desperate attempt to restore balance to the world. Another potential ritual was that of spirit evocation, where practitioners attempted to summon or control spirits for personal gain or to inflict harm on enemies. This practice was fraught with risk, as the spirits themselves could be unpredictable and dangerous, potentially turning on the summoner and causing them harm. Finally, curses were a feared reality in Celtic society, and Samhain was seen as a particularly potent time for their casting. These curses were often used to inflict misfortune, illness, or death on others, fueled by resentment, jealousy, or a desire for revenge. So if any of these practices are real, how does one perform them? Unfortunately, historical records of these practices are scarce and often fragmented, leaving us to piece together the puzzle from folklore, legends, and archaeological findings. While concrete evidence of widespread human sacrifice is lacking, some archaeological discoveries, such as bog bodies found in Ireland and Britain, have been interpreted as possible examples of ritual killings. These bodies often show signs of violent death and were buried in a manner suggesting a ritualistic purpose. However, the interpretation of these findings remains a subject of ongoing debate among historians and archaeologists. Stories abound of individuals who were haunted, possessed, or driven mad by spirits they attempted to control during ill-advised spirit evocation rituals. In some instances, the spirits were said to have demanded payment for their services, leading the summoner down a path of destruction and despair. And curse tablets, small pieces of lead inscribed with curses and spells, have been found throughout the Celtic world, bearing witness to the belief in the power of curses to inflict harm on enemies. These tablets often detail the intended effects of the curse, such as illness, misfortune, or death, and were typically buried in places associated with the underworld, such as graves or sacred wells. But what could drive someone to perform such rituals? The intentions and power dynamics behind these sinister rituals reveal a complex interplay of fear, control, and a desire for justice, however twisted. The desire to control spirits or influence events through magic can be interpreted as a means of gaining power over oneself and others. By manipulating the supernatural world, practitioners sought to assert their dominance over the forces that shaped their lives. However, this desire for control also carried significant ethical implications, as it involved manipulating free will and potentially causing harm to others. Some rituals may have been motivated by fear of the unknown and the desire to appease potentially malevolent forces. By offering sacrifices or performing rituals of appeasement, individuals hope to ward off evil spirits and ensure their own safety and well-being. But what does it mean to barter with beings that are potentially evil? Curses, on the other hand, were often used as a means of seeking revenge or justice for perceived wrongs. By inflicting harm on their enemies, individuals sought to restore balance to the world and right the injustices they had suffered. But the long-term consequences of curses and blood magic could be devastating, potentially leading to cycles of violence and retribution that perpetuated for generations. Can the need for vengeance ever justify inflicting harm on others? While the ancient Celts may be long gone, the themes of malevolent spirits, curses, and the darker side of human nature continue to resonate, shaping our fears, fantasies, and cultural expressions. These themes are reflected in horror fiction, occult practices, and even modern conspiracy theories, revealing the enduring fascination with the unknown and the potential for evil. However, we're just scratching the surface. Up next, we'll discover how these themes are reflected in movies, books, and television shows, as well as reveal the surprising ways that they have shaped modern conspiracy theories. But is Samhain all dark? It's crucial to remember that Samhain was not solely a festival of darkness and fear. It was also a time for honoring ancestors, celebrating community, and preparing for the winter months. The focus on sinister rituals can sometimes overshadow the more positive and life-affirming aspects of the festival, leading to a skewed and incomplete understanding of its significance. This is why it's important to avoid exaggerating or misrepresenting the historical evidence, ensuring that we don't inadvertently perpetuate harmful stereotypes or misconceptions about Celtic culture and beliefs. While it's tempting to focus on the most sensational aspects of Samhain, responsible exploration requires a nuanced and balanced approach, acknowledging the full spectrum of beliefs and practices associated with this ancient festival. How else can one practice Samhain without focusing on the sinister? By exploring both the light and the dark aspects of Samhain, we can gain a more complete and nuanced understanding of this ancient festival and its enduring influence. The key is to approach these topics with a balance of curiosity and caution, seeking to understand the historical context, motivations, and potential consequences of these beliefs and practices. Understanding is not endorsement. As we move forward, we must remember that every belief system has different interpretations. So, if we aren't going to endorse one, where does Samhain fall in modern-day society? The sinister aspects of Samhain, though rooted in the past, continue to echo through our modern culture, shaping our fears and inspiring our imaginations. This section explores the lasting impact of these themes, revealing how elements like malevolent spirits, curses, and dark magic persist in contemporary society. But how exactly did these ancient fears and beliefs manage to infiltrate the modern world? To understand this transmission, we must look to specific historical and cultural movements. The Romantic era, with its fascination for the supernatural and the darker aspects of human nature, played a crucial role. Key figures like Edgar Allan Poe, with his tales of madness and premature burial, and Mary Shelley, author of Frankenstein, explored themes of death, the grotesque, and the dangers of forbidden knowledge, laying the groundwork for the modern horror genre. Following this, the Gothic revival in literature and architecture contributed to the romanticization of the dark, mysterious, and ancient. Gothic novels, such as Bram Stoker's Dracula, transported readers to crumbling castles and shadowy landscapes, while Gothic architecture, with its imposing cathedrals and eerie gargoyles, fueled the popular imagination with images of the sublime and the terrifying. Finally, the late 19th and early 20th century occult revival saw a rediscovery and reinterpretation of esoteric and magical traditions. Figures like Aleister Crowley and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn delved into ancient mysteries, practicing rituals and exploring altered states of consciousness, contributing to the modern understanding of occultism. Did these movements amplify the more sinister aspects of Samhain, or did they simply provide new outlets for ancient fears? Sinister Samhain themes manifest in distinct ways in modern culture. Horror fiction, for example, draws upon themes of malevolent spirits, curses, and ritualistic violence to create fear and suspense. Horror novels, films, and video games frequently employ imagery and symbolism related to Samhain, such as haunted landscapes, ghostly apparitions, and the performance of dark rituals. Modern occultism, in some of its darker forms, incorporates elements of dark magic, spirit evocation, and ritualistic curses, often drawing inspiration from ancient traditions. While not all occult practices are sinister, some practitioners engage in rituals intended to manipulate dark forces or cause harm to others. Finally, conspiracy theories often incorporate themes of hidden knowledge, secret societies, and malevolent forces manipulating world events. These theories can tap into primal fears and anxieties, offering explanations for complex world events and a sense of belonging to a community of believers. Is the appeal of these themes rooted in a desire to understand the unknown, or is it driven by something darker? Consider the film The Witch, 2015, a horror film that draws heavily upon Celtic folklore and beliefs about witchcraft. The film tells the story of a Puritan family in 17th century New England who are terrorized by a malevolent force in the woods. The imagery and symbolism in the film, such as the presence of a black goat, the performance of dark rituals, and the invocation of demonic entities, evoke the sinister aspects of Samhain. In modern occultism, the use of sigils, incantations, and other ritualistic elements are common practice. Sigils, for example, are symbolic representations of a desired outcome or entity, and they are often used in rituals intended to manifest a specific result. Incantations, on the other hand, are spoken words or phrases that are believed to have magical power, and they are often used to invoke spirits or cast spells. As for conspiracy theories, consider the theories surrounding the Illuminati, a secret society founded in Bavaria in the late 18th century. According to some conspiracy theorists, the Illuminati are a powerful and malevolent force that seeks to control world events through manipulation and deception. These theories often incorporate themes of ancient pagan rituals, secret knowledge, and the invocation of demonic entities, echoing the sinister aspects of Samhain. But is there a psychological explanation for the enduring appeal of these themes? These sinister themes serve several psychological and social functions. Horror fiction allows individuals to confront their fears and anxieties in a safe and controlled environment. By experiencing fear through entertainment, individuals can gain a sense of catharsis and emotional release. Occult practices can provide individuals with a sense of power and control in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. By engaging in ritualistic behavior, individuals can feel more connected to the supernatural world and more in control of their own destinies. Conspiracy theories can provide individuals with a sense of meaning and purpose by offering explanations for complex world events and a sense of belonging to a community of believers. By finding patterns and connections in seemingly random events, individuals can feel more knowledgeable and empowered. What if these sinister themes are simply a way for us to make sense of a chaotic world? While these sinister themes can be unsettling, it's important to acknowledge that not all expressions of death, spirits, and the unknown are inherently negative or harmful. In fact, these themes can also be used for positive or constructive purposes, opening doors to creativity, self-discovery, and spiritual growth. But can the dark really lead to the light? Artists can use sinister themes to explore complex emotions, challenge social norms, and provoke thought. Dark imagery can be used to express grief, anger, or social critique, offering a way to process difficult emotions and challenge oppressive systems. Confronting one's fears and anxieties can lead to greater self-awareness, resilience, and personal growth. Exploring one's shadow self, the darker aspects of one's personality, can lead to greater wholeness and integration. Not all occultism or paganism seeks to cause harm, but instead offers positive guidance and inspiration. Many modern pagans and occultists use ritual and magic to connect with nature, promote healing, and cultivate personal growth. How do we distinguish between the helpful and the harmful when it comes to these themes? By exploring the diverse expressions of these themes in literature, film, occult practices, and conspiracy theories, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the enduring power of ancient beliefs and the human capacity for both darkness and light. The key is to approach these themes with a balance of curiosity and caution, seeking to understand their historical roots, psychological functions, and ethical implications. Ultimately, cultural artifacts are not inherently dangerous. What matters is how we engage with them and what we choose to take away. However, we've only scratched the surface of these modern expressions. Now we'll examine how not just sinister, but also positive elements of Samhain can be used in art. Can the past offer insight into the present? However, let's shift our focus from these modern echoes to the source of their dread, the malevolent spirits that haunted the ancient Celtic imagination. While remembering ancestors played a central role in Samhain, the Celts also believed that the veil between worlds thinned, which opened the door for more than just fond reunions. What if the glowing hearths and communal feasts were not just about honoring the dead, but also about actively warding off darker entities eager to cross over? To understand this fear, we must delve into the Celtic cosmology, specifically their understanding of the otherworld. The Celts believed in an otherworld, a realm that existed alongside our own, a place both tantalizingly close and infinitely distant. This otherworld was not simply a land of the dead. It was a vibrant, complex realm teeming with spirits, deities, and other supernatural beings. Some of these beings were benevolent, offering guidance and protection, but many were malevolent, actively seeking to cause harm, misfortune, or even death to humans. The boundary between these worlds, normally a sturdy barrier, was believed to weaken significantly during Samhain, making it a time of both great opportunity and immense danger. Would you risk opening a door if you knew something truly sinister could walk through? These spirits included restless dead, nature spirits, and even darker deities, each with their own motivations and desires. Restless dead are spirits of individuals who died violently, prematurely, or without proper burial rites. Denied passage to the otherworld, these spirits lingered in the world of the living, driven by vengeance, longing, or simply a desire to complete unfinished business. These spirits were believed to cause mischief, haunt specific locations, or even inflict illness upon the living. Nature spirits, on the other hand, were elemental beings associated with specific places or natural forces. While some nature spirits were benevolent guardians of the land, others were mischievous, capricious, or even malevolent towards humans. These spirits could cause crop failures, lead travelers astray, or unleash storms upon unsuspecting communities. Then there were the dark deities, ancient forces associated with death, destruction, and the underworld. These deities were often offered sacrifices in hopes of averting disaster or gaining favor from these powerful entities. What offerings would you give to something that demanded total obedience? For example, the Celts used protective amulets to ward off evil spirits. One such practice involved crafting amulets from specific stones, metals, or plant materials believed to possess protective powers. These amulets were often inscribed with Celtic symbols or glyphs, further enhancing their potency. Another method was boundary rituals, which protected homes, villages, or sacred sites from intrusion by malevolent spirits. These rituals could involve creating protective circles, using fire to create a barrier against evil, or chanting specific incantations. And then there were the offerings made to the dark. While details are scarce and often shrouded in secrecy, there are accounts of animals or valuable objects being sacrificed to appease darker deities or spirits, ensuring the community's well-being. One shocking ritual, whispered only in hushed tones, involved the offering of a straw man effigy, symbolic of a living person, to divert a curse or appease a vengeful spirit. Is it possible that some communities took this practice even further? This belief, however, served a crucial psychological purpose, providing a framework for understanding and responding to perceived threats. The rituals and offerings were intended to exert control over the spirit world, ensuring protection, prosperity, and the avoidance of disaster. The belief in malevolent spirits reinforced the Celtic worldview, emphasizing the interconnectedness of the living and the dead, the importance of maintaining balance, and the ever-present threat of unseen forces. This worldview shaped social norms, ethical values, and cultural practices, dictating how people should behave, what they should fear, and how they should interact with the supernatural world. Did fear then, as it does now, dictate people's actions? Yet as time marched forward, these methods of protection and appeasement have transformed over time, influencing modern beliefs and practices related to protection, spirituality, and the supernatural. Where the ancient Celts relied on amulets, rituals, and offerings to protect themselves from malevolent spirits, what has modern society created? It's important to note that not all spirits in the Celtic world were feared. The Celts also believed in benevolent spirits, helpful ancestors, and protective deities who offered guidance, healing, and support. Overemphasizing the darker aspects of Celtic spirituality risks portraying them as the sole focus of Celtic religious life. It's crucial to remember the diversity of Celtic beliefs and practices and to avoid generalizations. Not all practices had to do with warding off evil. Many of them dealt with nature and the beauty of life. Understanding the Celtic fear of malevolent spirits offers a vital lens through which to view their rituals and beliefs. By exploring these beliefs and practices, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the Celtic worldview, their understanding of the spirit world, and their efforts to navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life. The Celtic belief in malevolent spirits reflects a fundamental human desire to protect oneself from harm, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, and to find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. If fear is a major component of religion and folklore, what other religions share similar beliefs? Just as the ancient Celts attributed misfortune and unexplained events to malevolent spirits, modern society continues to grapple with the belief that unseen forces can influence our lives. But while the Celts relied on druids and ancient rituals, how do modern people react when they believe they are confronted by something truly evil? Even in an age dominated by science and reason, the belief in malevolent spirits persists, shaping how people interpret experiences, seek explanations for the unexplainable, and cope with fear and uncertainty. While scientific explanations can account for many phenomena, such as sleep paralysis, infrasound, or carbon monoxide poisoning, there are those who feel that something else is at play. Some negative experiences are for many attributed to unseen, malevolent forces, dark entities that whisper in the shadows and prey on human vulnerability. Has the scientific age made it more difficult or easier to believe in malevolent entities? This enduring fascination with the paranormal has fueled the rise of paranormal investigation, a field that attempts to bridge the gap between the scientific and the supernatural. Tracing its roots to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, paranormal investigation initially sought to apply scientific methods to the study of psychic phenomena. Key figures like William Crookes and organizations like the Society for Psychical Research pioneered early paranormal research, attempting to gather evidence of telepathy, clairvoyance, and the existence of spirits. However, what started as a serious scientific endeavor gradually transformed into a form of popular entertainment, with ghost hunting shows normalizing the idea of encountering spirits and documenting their activity using increasingly sophisticated technology. Has the normalization of paranormal investigation cheapened its initial intent? Technology has indelibly influenced paranormal investigation. From EMF readers and thermal cameras to digital voice recorders and sensitive microphones, ghost hunters use an array of tools to detect and document paranormal activity. But can technology truly capture the essence of a malevolent spirit, or does it merely amplify our own fears and biases? Within the modern lexicon of paranormal beliefs, certain types of malevolent spirits stand out: ghosts, demons, and shadow people. Ghosts, often understood as the spirits of deceased individuals who remain tethered to the world of the living, can manifest in various forms, from poltergeists causing physical disturbances to apparitions appearing as fleeting glimpses of the deceased. Demons, on the other hand, are often perceived as malevolent entities that seek to possess, torment, or influence human beings. Tales of demonic possession have persisted for centuries, rooted in religious and spiritual traditions, sparking both fear and fascination. Then there are the shadow people, dark, shadowy figures often glimpsed in peripheral vision or during episodes of sleep paralysis, evoke feelings of fear and dread. Are these three categories of malevolent entities separate, or do they have similar origins? The origins and current understandings of each type of spirit vary. Ghosts are often attributed to unresolved trauma or unfinished business, their presence a lingering echo of their past lives. Demons, often associated with religious contexts, are believed to be fallen angels or ancient entities seeking to corrupt and destroy humanity. Shadow people, the most enigmatic of the three, lack a clear origin story, their existence shrouded in mystery and speculation. What if these shadowy figures are tied to something more sinister than folklore? Modern encounters with these malevolent spirits manifest in various ways, documented in personal accounts, paranormal investigations, and even popular media. Haunted locations, such as abandoned hospitals, historic houses, or former prisons, are often rife with reports of unexplained noises, apparitions, cold spots, and other unsettling phenomena. Consider the famously haunted Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky, where countless individuals have reported experiencing paranormal activity, from disembodied voices to shadowy figures lurking in the corridors. These locations, steeped in history and tragedy, seem to act as magnets for spiritual unrest. But are these locations truly haunted, or are we simply projecting our own fears and anxieties onto these empty spaces? Possession cases, while rare, continue to capture the public imagination, often involving dramatic displays of altered behavior, physical strength, and the ability to speak in unknown languages. The case of Anneliese Mitchell, a young German woman who underwent exorcism in the 1970s, remains one of the most well-known and debated instances of alleged demonic possession, raising questions about the interplay of mental illness, religious belief, and the power of suggestion. Are possessions only a psychological phenomenon, or is there a chance that it is something more? Shadow people encounters, often described as fleeting glimpses of dark figures in the periphery, can be particularly unsettling, leaving individuals with a sense of fear, dread, and the feeling of being watched. These encounters, often occurring during times of stress or sleep deprivation, raise questions about the nature of perception, the power of suggestion, and the potential for our minds to create their own terrors. What if shadow people are the result of sleep paralysis and nothing more? However, what if these experiences can be explained by psychological and cultural factors, rather than actual supernatural encounters? Suggestibility and confirmation bias play a significant role in shaping perceptions of paranormal phenomena. Suggestibility, the tendency to accept and act upon the suggestions of others, can lead individuals to interpret ambiguous stimuli, such as creaking noises or shadows, as evidence of spirits. Confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms pre-existing beliefs, can further reinforce these perceptions, leading people to see patterns and connections where none exist. Pareidolia, the psychological phenomenon of perceiving patterns in random stimuli, can also contribute to the belief in malevolent spirits, as people may see faces in shadows or hear voices in white noise. can the mind create its own monsters. Cultural narratives, such as ghost stories, horror films, and religious beliefs, exert a powerful influence on our expectations and interpretations of paranormal experiences. Growing up with tales of haunted houses, demonic possession, and vengeful spirits can create a self-fulfilling prophecy, leading people to interpret ambiguous events through a supernatural lens. Horror films, with their dramatic depictions of paranormal phenomena, can further amplify these fears, creating a cultural expectation that certain places or situations are inherently dangerous. Does popular culture sensationalize the existence of malevolent spirits? Belief in malevolent spirits can also serve as a coping mechanism for dealing with trauma, loss, or other difficult life experiences. Attributing misfortune to external forces, such as curses or demonic influence, can provide a sense of control over otherwise uncontrollable events. For individuals who have experienced trauma, the belief in malevolent spirits can offer a way to externalize their pain and make sense of their experiences. Are we more susceptible to believing in evil when we have gone through a tragedy? Just as the ancient Celts used amulets and rituals to ward off evil spirits, modern individuals employ a variety of methods to protect themselves from perceived threats from the spirit world, influencing practices such as sage cleansing, energy shielding, and spiritual protection rituals. How do these rituals compare to those of the past? As we have seen, fear of malevolent spirits has long gripped the human imagination, and as humans spread across the globe, so did these beliefs. What methods, then, have been employed throughout history to ward off or control these perceived supernatural threats? This section focuses on humanity's consistent efforts to protect themselves, examining the evolution and cultural significance of rituals, symbols, and practices designed to provide safety from unseen dangers. From ancient amulets to modern energy shielding, the need for protection from spirits has driven the development of a vast array of fascinating and often surprising beliefs. To understand the diverse methods of protection used across the ages, it's essential to delve into their ancient origins and the worldviews that shaped them. Ancient cultures, steeped in animistic beliefs and a profound connection to the spirit world, developed various techniques to avert evil influences or bad luck. Apotropaic magic, for example, involved using rituals, symbols, or objects to deflect negative energy and safeguard individuals and communities. Think of the grotesque gargoyles perched atop Gothic cathedrals, their menacing visages designed to scare away evil spirits. Or consider the ubiquitous evil eye amulets, found across cultures from the Mediterranean to the Middle East, believed to deflect envious gazes and protect against curses. Even the seemingly simple act of painting protective symbols on doorways, such as the Hamsa hand or the pentagram, served as a visual barrier against malevolent forces. But what if the real intention of these symbols was far removed from simply protection? Purification rituals were another common method used to cleanse spaces or individuals from spiritual contamination. Fire, water, and smoke were often employed to drive away negative energy and restore balance. The practice of smudging with sage, still prevalent in many indigenous cultures, involves burning sacred herbs to purify the air and dispel negative influences. The use of salt, a natural preservative, to create protective barriers around homes or sacred spaces was also a widespread practice, believed to ward off evil spirits and prevent them from entering. Could the widespread adoption of these rituals point to a universal fear of the unknown? Invocation, the act of calling upon a deity, was yet another strategy. Deities or benevolent spirits were believed to offer protection, often through prayer, offerings, or ritualistic ceremonies. The invocation of guardian angels, ancestral spirits, or protective deities from various pantheons was a common practice, providing individuals with a sense of divine assistance and guidance. The ancient Egyptians, for example, invoked the goddess Tauret, a protective deity of childbirth and fertility to safeguard mothers and infants from harm. Were these invocations truly effective, or did they simply provide a psychological sense of comfort in the face of uncertainty? Delving deeper, let's define some of the specific methods used to protect against malevolent spirits throughout history. Amulets and talismans, portable objects believed to possess protective powers, were often worn as jewelry or carried as personal safeguards. These objects were typically inscribed with symbols, words, or images believed to have magical properties, such as the Ankh in ancient Egypt or the pentacle in modern Wicca. The materials used in amulet construction also held symbolic meanings, with certain stones, metals, and herbs believed to enhance their protective powers. For instance, amethyst was thought to promote calmness and clarity, while obsidian was believed to absorb negative energy. Were these materials simply chosen for their aesthetic appeal, or did ancient cultures possess a deeper understanding of their energetic properties? Ritual cleansing, another important method, involved performing ceremonies designed to purify spaces or individuals from negative energy or spiritual contamination. These rituals often involved the use of specific herbs, crystals, or other objects believed to have cleansing properties. Smudging with sage, as mentioned earlier, was a common practice, as was the use of blessed water or salt to wash away negative influences. Some rituals also involved chanting, drumming, or other forms of sound vibration to dispel negative energy and restore harmony. But is it simply the ritualistic act of cleansing that provides a sense of peace? Protective symbols, such as crosses, pentagrams, or sigils, were widely used to ward off evil influences and create a barrier against malevolent spirits. These symbols were often displayed prominently in homes, churches, or other sacred spaces, serving as a visual reminder of the protective forces at work. The pentagram, for example, was used in ancient Greece and medieval Europe as a symbol of protection, representing the 5 elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Sigils, or magical symbols created for specific purposes, were also used to invoke protective energies and ward off negative influences. What if the true power of these symbols lies not in their visual representation, but in the intention and belief of the individuals who use them? Consider these protective methods through examples from various historical periods and cultures. In ancient Egypt, amulets such as the Eye of Horus, a powerful symbol of protection, health, and restoration, were commonly worn by both the living and the dead to ward off evil spirits and ensure safe passage to the afterlife. The Ankh, another important Egyptian symbol representing life, was also used as a protective amulet, often placed on mummies to ensure their resurrection in the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that these amulets, imbued with the power of the gods, could shield them from harm in both this world and the next. Did these beliefs extend beyond the grave? In medieval Europe, crosses, holy water, and exorcism rituals were employed to ward off demons and protect against witchcraft. The cross, a symbol of Christ's sacrifice, was believed to have the power to repel evil spirits, while holy water, blessed by a priest, was used to cleanse spaces and individuals from demonic influence. Exorcism rituals, performed by trained clergy, were used to cast out demons from possessed individuals, often involving prayers, incantations, and the use of religious symbols. During this period, the fear of witchcraft was rampant, and these protective measures were seen as essential for safeguarding communities from the forces of darkness. But what if the demons they sought to exorcise were simply manifestations of mental illness or social unrest? In modern Wicca, pentacles, protective circles, and invocations of deities are used to create a safe and sacred space for ritual practice. The pentacle, a 5-pointed star within a circle, is a symbol of protection and balance, representing the 5 elements and the interconnectedness of all things. Protective circles, created by visualizing a sphere of energy around a ritual space, are used to ward off unwanted energies and ensure that only positive forces are present. Invocations of deities, such as the goddess and the god, are used to invoke their blessings and protection during ritual workings. Are these modern practices a continuation of ancient traditions, or simply a reimagining of age-old fears? The psychological functions of these protective methods are complex and multifaceted. The use of rituals and symbols can provide a sense of agency and empowerment, allowing individuals to feel that they are taking active steps to protect themselves from harm. This sense of control can be particularly important in the face of uncertainty, fear, or perceived threats, helping to reduce anxiety and promote a sense of well-being. However, is this control real, or simply an illusion created by our own minds? The belief in the effectiveness of protective methods can also trigger the placebo effect, leading to a reduction in anxiety, stress, and other negative emotions. The placebo effect, a well-documented phenomenon in medicine, demonstrates the power of belief and expectation in shaping subjective experiences. When individuals believe that a particular treatment or practice will be effective, they are more likely to experience positive outcomes, regardless of whether the treatment itself has any inherent therapeutic value. Can our minds truly create their own reality? Collective rituals and practices can provide a sense of community support and shared purpose, strengthening social bonds and promoting resilience. When individuals come together to perform protective rituals, they create a sense of solidarity and shared belief, reinforcing their sense of belonging and providing emotional support. This sense of community can be particularly important during times of crisis or uncertainty, helping individuals to cope with stress and maintain a sense of hope. But is this sense of community built on a foundation of shared delusion? While traditional methods of protection continue to be practiced, modern skepticism and alternative approaches have led to new interpretations and practices related to safety, spirituality, and well-being. As society becomes more secular and scientifically oriented, many individuals have abandoned traditional religious beliefs and practices, seeking alternative ways to find meaning, purpose, and protection in their lives. This has led to the rise of secular approaches to protection, such as mindfulness, self-care, and community activism. How do these approaches provide a similar sense of safety? It's important to be mindful of the cultural origins of protective symbols and rituals, and to avoid appropriating them without proper knowledge, consent, or acknowledgement. Cultural appropriation, the act of taking or using elements of a culture that is not one's own, can be particularly problematic when it involves sacred or spiritual practices. Adopting protective methods from other traditions without understanding their cultural context or respecting their original meaning can be seen as disrespectful, insensitive, and even harmful. Is there a line between cultural exchange and cultural appropriation, and if so, where is it drawn? By exploring these methods, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the human capacity for resilience, creativity, and the enduring search for safety and security in a world that often feels uncertain and unpredictable. Our understanding of protection is shaped by a combination of personal experiences, cultural narratives, psychological predispositions, and historical beliefs, creating a rich and multifaceted tapestry of human thought and action. As we journey through life, we inevitably encounter challenges, setbacks, and moments of fear and uncertainty. The methods we use to protect ourselves, whether they be ancient rituals, modern therapies, or simply acts of self-care, reflect our innate desire to feel safe, secure, and empowered in the face of adversity. But does this feeling truly protect us? What happens when it fails? As we delve deeper into the mysteries of Samhain, we find practices that extend beyond simple harvest celebrations and ancestor veneration. What if some offerings made during Samhain were not intended for benevolent spirits or deities, but specifically to appease potentially malevolent forces or to avert impending disaster? It is essential to distinguish between the respectful veneration of ancestors and the often desperate attempts to placate darker entities lurking just beyond the veil, actions born out of a primal fear of the unknown and a need to exert some form of control. This section will examine the motivations and implications behind these darker offerings, with particular attention paid to the potential role of animal sacrifice in these ancient rites. To understand the full scope of Samhain rituals, we must first acknowledge the historical context of blood sacrifice within Celtic religion. Did the Celts offer blood sacrifices at Samhain, and if so, to whom or what? Archaeological evidence, though often difficult to interpret definitively, along with fragmented historical accounts, suggests that animal sacrifice may indeed have been a part of certain Celtic practices. The reasons for these sacrifices could have been varied, ranging from ensuring fertility and a bountiful harvest to averting natural disasters or appeasing deities and spirits believed to control the fate of the community. For example, archaeological digs at sites believed to have been used for Celtic rituals have revealed animal remains, often showing signs of ritualistic slaughter, with bones carefully arranged or buried in specific locations. However, it's crucial to differentiate these ritualistic actions from simple slaughtering for food, which would have also occurred during this time of year. What separates the everyday from the truly sinister, defining animal sacrifice as potentially practiced during Samhain, requires us to look at its key elements: purpose, selection, and method. Why would the Celts have sacrificed animals? The reasons were manifold. Sacrifices may have served as offerings to deities, expressions of gratitude, or attempts to gain favor. Other sacrifices could have been made to appease spirits, preventing them from causing harm or misfortune. Divination, seeking knowledge of the future, may have also involved animal sacrifice, with the entrails or the manner of death providing clues to the unseen world. Still, other sacrifices could have been performed to strengthen magical spells or rituals, lending them greater potency. But what determined which animal was chosen for sacrifice? The types of animals likely varied depending on the purpose of the ritual and the resources available. Bulls, symbols of strength and virility, may have been offered to ensure the power of the community, while sheep, associated with fertility and abundance, may have been sacrificed to promote successful harvests and healthy flocks. The color or markings of the animal may also have been significant, with specific patterns aligning with the attributes of the deity or spirit being invoked. And what of the act itself? The methods of sacrifice would have been highly ritualistic, emphasizing the sacred nature of the act and the importance of performing it correctly. This may have involved specific chants, prayers, or gestures, and the remains of the animal could have been treated with reverence, perhaps burned as an offering or buried in a sacred location. Specific examples of archaeological finds and historical interpretations shed light on the potential role of animal sacrifice during Samhain. What do the bones tell us? Ritual sites across the Celtic world have yielded animal bones in unusual arrangements and contexts, suggesting ritualistic activity. For instance, animal remains have been discovered within the remains of bonfires, indicating that animals may have been sacrificed as part of the Samhain celebrations. Other finds include animal bones buried near sacred sites, such as groves or springs, suggesting offerings to deities or spirits associated with those locations. Historical accounts, though often written by outsiders like Roman writers, also describe animal sacrifices performed by the Celts. These accounts, while potentially biased or limited in their understanding, provide valuable insights into Celtic religious practices. For example, some Roman writers describe Celtic priests offering animal sacrifices to their gods, seeking favor or averting disaster. However, interpretations of this evidence vary among scholars, with ongoing debate about the prevalence and significance of animal sacrifice in Celtic religion. While some scholars emphasize the ritualistic nature of these practices, others suggest that they may have been less common or less elaborate than previously thought. What if the truth lies somewhere in between? Analyzing the motivations, power dynamics, and potential cosmological implications of animal sacrifice allows us to delve deeper into the Celtic worldview. Why would they engage in such acts? The act of sacrifice can be interpreted as an attempt to gain favor from deities or spirits, establishing a transactional relationship in which humans offered something of value in exchange for blessings or protection. For example, the Celts may have believed that sacrificing an animal could ensure a plentiful harvest, protect the community from harm, or grant victory in battle. Sacrifice may also have been viewed as a way of restoring balance to the cosmos, acknowledging the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. The Celts may have believed that sacrifice could replenish the energy of the universe, ensuring the continued flow of life and the proper functioning of the natural world. Furthermore, animal sacrifice could have been a means of asserting control over the natural world, demonstrating human dominance and power. By sacrificing an animal, the Celts may have sought to legitimize social hierarchies and power structures, reinforcing the idea that humans were the masters of their environment. Ultimately, any of these actions would have been performed to ensure the survival and well-being of the community, reflecting a deep understanding of their place in the natural order and the forces that shape their world. Beyond offerings intended to appease potentially malevolent forces, the Celts also sought knowledge from the spirit world, sometimes employing darker forms of divination with unsettling implications. What lay beyond the simple animal sacrifice? This leads us to examine practices such as necromancy, consulting with the dead, and the interpretation of omens derived from disturbing or unnatural events. These methods, often shrouded in secrecy and taboo, hint at a willingness to delve into the darker aspects of the spirit world, seeking knowledge that may have been considered forbidden or dangerous. Not all ways to tell the future bring positive news. It's crucial to remember that not all offerings during Samhain were intended to appease malevolent forces. What about the good intentions? Many offerings were likely made to benevolent deities, ancestral spirits, or nature spirits, expressing gratitude for blessings received and seeking continued favor. These offerings may have included food, drink, or handcrafted items, symbolizing the community's connection to the land and their appreciation for its bounty. Furthermore, there is always the potential for misinterpreting the evidence, emphasizing the importance of considering the broader context and cultural values. Seemingly dark practices may have had different meanings or purposes within the Celtic worldview, reflecting a complex understanding of the spirit world and the balance between light and darkness. Therefore, responsible scholarship demands careful consideration of the available evidence, avoiding sensationalism and acknowledging the limitations of our understanding. By exploring the diverse range of practices associated with Samhain, from benevolent offerings to darker forms of sacrifice and divination, we can gain a more complete understanding of the Celtic worldview, their relationship with the spirit world, and their efforts to navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life. What does it all mean? The Samhain rituals reflect a complex interplay of religious beliefs, social dynamics, and psychological motivations, creating a rich and multifaceted tapestry of human thought and action. Without the proper cultural context, any action could seem sinister, but with careful study, we can begin to understand the true meaning behind these ancient rites. What other dark secrets does Samhain hold, and what can they teach us about the human condition? Beyond offerings intended to appease potentially malevolent forces, there existed a more disturbing pursuit during Samhain, the extraction of forbidden knowledge through darker divination practices. What drove the Celts to seek knowledge at such a terrible cost? It's vital to distinguish between the common forms of divination used for guidance and insight, and those methods deemed taboo, venturing into realms best left undisturbed. This section unveils the grim methods employed to tap into unsettling knowledge, delving into necromancy, and the interpretation of omens derived from the unnatural, practices that tested the boundaries of both the physical and spiritual worlds. To grasp the sinister side of Samhain divination, one must first explore the historical context of blood and bone divination within Celtic society. How did the Celts view the body as a source of knowledge, even in death? The Celts believed that the body, even in death, held echoes of the life it once contained, offering a potential conduit to the spirit world. They believed that the spirits of sacrificed animals, imbued with the energy of life and death, could provide glimpses into the future. Druids, as interpreters of omens and signs, held a crucial role in deciphering the messages derived from these practices. For example, the careful observation of how an animal died, the arrangement of its bones, or the patterns formed by its spilled blood could reveal insights into future events or the will of the gods. But what were the specific practices deemed dark, and how did they differ from more accepted forms of divination? Defining dark divination requires us to examine specific practices associated with it during Samhain, notably necromancy and the interpretation of omens from the unnatural. What made these practices so dangerous? Necromancy, the practice of communicating with the dead, was undertaken to gain forbidden knowledge or foretell the future. This involved rituals performed at sacred sites, often during the liminal time of Samhain, when the veil between worlds was believed to be thin. The methods used varied, but often involved incantations, offerings, and the manipulation of bodily remains to summon the spirits of the deceased. But what risks did necromancy pose, and why was it considered a taboo? The risks involved were substantial, ranging from attracting malevolent spirits to suffering psychological harm from exposure to the realm of the dead. Furthermore, disturbing the dead was seen as a violation of the natural order, potentially incurring the wrath of deities or ancestral spirits. Then there were omens from the unnatural. The Celts paid close attention to specific events, particularly those that deviated from the natural order, believing they held prophetic significance. The manner of a person's death, whether in battle or childbirth, could be interpreted as an omen, offering insights into the future of the community or the fate of individuals. Even storms or other weather events would have been seen as omens, portending periods of prosperity or hardship. But how reliable were these omens, and what biases might have influenced their interpretation? Examples of these darker divination practices can be found scattered throughout Celtic mythology, folklore, and to a lesser extent, historical accounts. What can these sources tell us about the role of dark divination in Celtic society? Mythological figures, such as Celtic deities or heroes, frequently sought knowledge from the dead or used omens to guide their actions. For instance, stories tell of warriors consulting with the spirits of fallen enemies to gain tactical advantage in battle, or leaders seeking guidance from ancestral spirits to ensure the prosperity of their reign. But is there any concrete evidence to support these mythological accounts? Archaeological evidence, while limited, offers tantalizing hints of rituals and practices related to necromancy and the interpretation of omens. For example, the discovery of burial sites with unusual arrangements of bones or grave goods may suggest attempts to communicate with the dead or manipulate their spirits. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the limitations of these interpretations, as the meaning of these finds remains open to debate. Were there any written accounts about how the Celts learned about what to do and when? Unfortunately, the Celts themselves left little in the way of written records, so scholars have had to examine accounts written by those who sought to understand the culture from an outside perspective. Analyzing the motivations, power dynamics, and psychological implications of these darker divination practices allows us to understand the forces that drove the Celts to seek forbidden knowledge. What lay at the heart of these practices? The desire to control the future through divination can be interpreted as a means of gaining power over fate and destiny. By peering into the unseen world, the Celts may have sought to mitigate risks, seize opportunities, and ensure the survival and prosperity of their community. This desire could have been driven by a deep-seated fear of the unknown, a need for control in an unpredictable world, or a belief in the interconnectedness of all things. Necromancy, in particular, may have served as a way of confronting the fear of death and the unknown, seeking answers about the afterlife and the fate of loved ones. The psychological comfort that such practices may have provided cannot be overstated, offering solace in the face of loss and uncertainty. However, what were the ethical implications of seeking knowledge from the dead or manipulating supernatural forces? Such actions raised ethical questions about the boundaries of human knowledge and the potential for unintended consequences. While the ancient Celts practiced necromancy and interpreted omens, echoes of these practices can be seen in modern occultism, horror fiction, and paranormal beliefs. But how do these ancient beliefs manifest themselves today? This brings us to the exploration of modern ghost hunting, seances, and the enduring fascination with communicating with the dead. What we'll discover next is that even today, some divination techniques are still considered taboo, pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable in the pursuit of knowledge. It's important to remember that not all divination practices during Samhain were sinister or malevolent. What about the benevolent uses of divination? Many forms of divination were used for positive purposes, such as seeking guidance, healing, or protection. The interpretation of dreams, the casting of runes, or the consultation of oracles could provide valuable insights into personal matters, offering clarity and direction in times of uncertainty. Emphasizing the importance of considering the context and intent behind these practices, avoiding generalizations or sensationalism, the Celtic worldview was complex and nuanced. Seemingly unsettling practices may have had different meanings or purposes, reflecting a deep understanding of the spirit world and the balance between light and darkness. Were there any actions that everyone agreed were negative? By exploring the full spectrum of divination practices associated with Samhain, from benevolent guidance to darker attempts to manipulate fate, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the Celtic worldview, their relationship with the spirit world, and their complex understanding of fate and destiny. What does this tell us about the enduring human fascination with the unknown? The Samhain rituals reflect a complex interplay of religious beliefs, social dynamics, and psychological motivations, creating a rich and multifaceted tapestry of human thought and action. Without a firm grasp of the culture of the ancient Celts, we can never fully comprehend what those actions might have been, much less why they were done. While the ancient Celts sought forbidden knowledge through necromancy and omens, did these sinister practices truly vanish with the passage of time, or have they merely transformed, finding new expressions in our modern world? This section will explore the chilling reality of dark divination in contemporary times, venturing far beyond the sanitized image of Halloween to confront the enduring human fascination with contacting the dead and foretelling the future, even through methods deemed taboo or dangerous. We will move beyond historical context to examine the modern forms of these potentially dangerous practices. To understand the modern manifestations of dark divination, we must first look back at the 19th and 20th century occult revival and the spiritualist movement, which served as a crucial bridge between ancient beliefs and contemporary practices. How did these movements set the stage for the darker forms of divination we see today? The 19th century witnessed a surge of interest in occultism, fueled by Romanticism, scientific advancements, and a growing skepticism toward traditional religion. The spiritualist movement, in particular, gained immense popularity, promising communication with deceased, loved ones through seances, mediumship, and other forms of spirit communication. Key figures such as the Fox sisters, Madame Blavatsky, and Aleister Crowley emerged during this period, shaping the landscape of modern occultism with their teachings and practices. Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society, which attempted to reconcile Eastern and Western religions into a single unifying system. Crowley practiced ceremonial magic and the lemma, and is also the founder of the religion of the lemma, influencing many modern occultists. But how did these movements, seemingly focused on spiritual enlightenment, pave the way for an interest in darker practices, including contact with potentially malevolent entities? The thirst for spiritual knowledge, coupled with a fascination with the unknown, inadvertently opened doors to realms that had long been considered taboo, blurring the lines between harmless curiosity and dangerous experimentation. This new wave of occult interests, fueled by spiritualism and the teachings of influential figures, created a fertile ground for the resurgence of practices echoing the darker forms of Samhain divination. The echoes of Samhain's darker divination practices can be heard in modern practices like ghost hunting and the use of Ouija boards. What exactly makes these practices mirrors of those ancient rituals? Ghost hunting, a popular activity fueled by television shows and online communities, often involves attempting to communicate with the dead using various tools and techniques. While some ghost hunters approach their investigations with scientific rigor, others actively seek to provoke spirits, blurring the line between objective investigation and potentially dangerous provocation. Tools like EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recorders and spirit boxes are used to capture hit inus voices of the dead, while others attempt to make direct contact through seances or channeled messages. Is there a potential risk in purposely seeking contact with entities that may be dangerous or even malevolent? Then there's the Ouija board, a seemingly harmless game that has become synonymous with the paranormal. This simple board with letters, numbers, and a planchette is believed by some to be a gateway to the spirit world, allowing users to communicate with entities beyond our realm. However, the lack of control over the entities that may respond, coupled with the potential for psychological manipulation, makes the Ouija board a particularly risky tool. Many people don't realize that a Ouija board is not a game. Is it possible that Ouija boards can open doorways to the spirit world, or is the spirit world something that has always been open? Finally, there is remote viewing, which involves a meditative, divinatory state where one may seek to view a space or person that they have never physically been to. The risks associated with these practices are not merely theoretical. There are numerous accounts of negative encounters, psychological disturbances, and even alleged possessions linked to dark divination. What are some of these modern cases, and what can they tell us about the potential dangers? Ghost hunting incidents often involve participants claiming to have experienced negative encounters with spirits, such as possessions, physical attacks, or psychological disturbances. Paranormal investigation shows and documented cases frequently feature accounts of investigators being scratched, pushed, or even experiencing temporary possession during their investigations. In some instances, individuals have reported lingering psychological effects, such as anxiety, depression, or paranoia, after participating in ghost hunts. Can these effects be attributed solely to the power of suggestion and the influence of group dynamics, or is there something more sinister at play? Ouija board horror stories abound, with individuals reporting hauntings, nightmares, or mental health issues after using the board. Urban legends and personal anecdotes tell of objects moving on their own, disembodied voices, and even demonic entities manifesting after a session with the Ouija board. In some cases, individuals have reported feeling a sense of dread or oppression in their homes after using the board, leading to prolonged periods of fear and anxiety. Could these experiences be attributed to the power of suggestion, heightened emotional states, or underlying mental health vulnerabilities, or do they point to a genuine connection with the spirit world? Some paranormal investigators have shared interviews in which they felt in mortal danger and had to leave a building immediately. The psychological vulnerabilities and potential for exploitation associated with these practices are a significant concern. What drives individuals to seek contact with the dead, and what makes them susceptible to manipulation by unscrupulous individuals? The desire to contact the dead can be interpreted as a way of coping with grief, loss, or unresolved emotional issues. Mediums or psychics may prey on vulnerable individuals seeking closure, offering false hope or manipulating their emotions for financial gain. Is the desire to connect with deceased loved ones a natural human impulse, or does it create a vulnerability that can be exploited by those with ulterior motives? Some individuals may be drawn to dark divination practices as a way of seeking power, control, or validation, particularly if they feel marginalized or disempowered. The allure of forbidden knowledge and the ability to manipulate supernatural forces can be intoxicating, leading to ego inflation and a potential for abuse of power. Can the pursuit of power through dark divination ultimately lead to a loss of control and a descent into darkness? Group dynamics also play a significant role in these practices, with participants often influencing each other's experiences and perceptions. The pressure to conform, the desire to impress others, and the heightened emotional atmosphere can create a breeding ground for suggestibility and potentially harmful behaviors. What steps can people take to protect themselves from manipulation, psychological harm, or even genuine paranormal encounters? While dark divination practices persist in the modern world, there is a growing awareness of the potential risks and the importance of approaching these practices with caution, respect, and ethical awareness. But how can we shift perceptions and promote responsible practices in divination and spirit communication? As people become more aware of the dangers of these practices, they can take steps to keep themselves safe. Some practitioners recommend setting clear boundaries with spirits, avoiding contact with entities that feel malevolent or threatening, and seeking guidance from experienced and ethical professionals. Others emphasize the importance of grounding techniques, self-awareness, and critical thinking to avoid being influenced by suggestion or emotional manipulation. Is it possible to engage with divination and spirit communication in a way that is both safe and meaningful, or are these practices inherently dangerous and best avoided altogether? It's important to remember that not all encounters with spirits or divination experiences are inherently negative or dangerous. Can positive experiences also arise from these practices? Many individuals report positive, comforting, or transformative experiences through spirit communication or divination practices. Some find solace, guidance, or healing through these practices, connecting with deceased loved ones, gaining insights into their lives, or finding a sense of purpose and meaning. Is it possible that the negative experiences associated with dark divination are the exception rather than the rule, or do they represent a hidden danger lurking beneath the surface? It is important to use personal discernment and avoid generalizations or fear-mongering. By understanding the potential risks and vulnerabilities associated with dark divination practices, we can approach them with caution, respect, and a strong sense of personal responsibility. What does this tell us about engaging with the unseen world? The Samhain rituals reflect a complex interplay of religious beliefs, social dynamics, and psychological motivations, creating a rich and multifaceted tapestry of human thought and action. However, we must always remember to be careful when contacting these forces, since they may not always have the best intentions. While we've explored Samhain as a time for honoring ancestors and appeasing spirits, did the ancient Celts only seek to connect with the otherworld for guidance and protection? Now we shift our focus to a more sinister aspect of Samhain, the active infliction of harm through curses, revealing the belief that words and rituals held terrifying power. For the Celts, curses weren't mere expressions of anger or frustration. They were potent acts believed capable of causing real, tangible harm. To understand the role of curses in Celtic society, we must first consider the Druids or other individuals gifted in the dark arts, and their unique position as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. But what made them uniquely suited to cast curses? Druids, as the spiritual and intellectual elite of Celtic society, were believed to possess profound knowledge of the natural world, the spirit realm, and the hidden forces that governed both. They underwent rigorous training, mastering esoteric lore, divination techniques, and the art of manipulating energy. This deep understanding, combined with their social standing and perceived connection to the gods, imbued them with immense authority. While not all druids engaged in curse casting, the ability to do so was considered within their purview, a tool to be wielded with caution and discretion. Their role was not simply to communicate with the spirits, but to actively influence them for good or ill. Imagine a druid standing beneath the ancient oaks, channeling the power of the earth and the spirits, their words carrying the weight of tradition and the force of unseen energies. What sort of training would be required to cast a curse, and what were the consequences if such a curse were improperly cast? But what exactly constituted a Celtic curse, and what specific rituals were involved in its casting? A Celtic curse was far more than a simple expression of ill will. It was a carefully constructed ritual designed to channel negative energy and direct it toward a specific target. The core of any curse lay in the caster's intent, their unwavering focus on the desired outcome, typically achieved through meditation and visualization. This intent was then amplified through specific components, sacred objects imbued with symbolic power, gestures that mimicked the desired effect, and incantations that invoked the aid of spirits or deities. The selection of these components was crucial, as each element contributed to the overall potency of the curse. The targets of such curses could range from individuals who had committed offenses against the community to rival tribes or even the spirits themselves. What actions were considered curse-worthy in Celtic society, and how did the precision of these rituals impact their effectiveness? Precision and strict adherence to tradition were paramount. Any deviation from the prescribed ritual could weaken the curse or even turn it back on the caster. Examples of curses from the Celtic world can be found in inscriptions, folklore, and even potential archaeological evidence. But what can these fragments of the past tell us about the darker side of Celtic belief? Curse tablets, small lead or bronze sheets inscribed with curses and deposited in sacred springs or burial grounds, offer a glimpse into the practice of imprecation. Discovered at Celtic sites across Europe, these tablets reveal the diverse range of grievances that prompted individuals to seek supernatural retribution, from theft and betrayal to unrequited love. One tablet found in Gaul implores the goddess Sulis Minerva to inflict suffering on a thief who stole a cloak, while another calls for the destruction of a rival charioteer. Folklore is another rich source of information about Celtic curses. Stories abound of individuals who were cursed for violating sacred oaths, disrespecting the spirits, or crossing powerful figures. The consequences of these curses could range from illness and misfortune to madness and death. Then there are the offerings given specifically to curse people, even if those people were long deceased. Were these offerings intended to appease the spirits of the dead, or were they intended to enlist their aid in harming the living? The intentions and psychological effects of curses in Celtic society reveal a complex interplay of social control, psychological warfare, and emotional release. But how did these curses function within the fabric of Celtic life? Curses served as a powerful mechanism for enforcing social norms, punishing transgressions, and maintaining order. In a society without formal legal systems, the threat of supernatural retribution could deter individuals from engaging in behaviors that threatened the community's well-being. They also functioned as a form of psychological warfare, intended to instill fear, undermine enemies, and assert dominance. The belief in the power of curses could demoralize opponents, disrupt their plans, and even drive them to madness. Curse casting was also used as a coping mechanism for individuals who felt wronged or powerless. By channeling their anger and frustration into a ritualized act of aggression, they could regain a sense of control and seek emotional relief. A curse could, in this way, become a weapon of the weak, a means of striking back against those who held power. What were the ethical considerations surrounding curse casting, and what were the potential downsides and dangers of such actions? While the ancient Celts cast curses with specific rituals, the belief in curses persists in modern society, albeit often in altered forms. But how did the Celts view the ethics of casting curses, and how does that compare to modern views? While the ancient Celts are gone, the power of curses persists, hinting at the exploration of modern beliefs and practices related to curses, jinxes, and the evil eye that we will explore in the next section. However, it is important to acknowledge that Druids and other spiritual figures also performed acts of healing and blessing. Were these acts of benevolence simply the opposite side of the same coin, or did they represent a fundamentally different approach to the spirit world? Druids were not inherently malevolent, and curse casting was likely viewed as a last resort, a means of protecting the community or righting a grave wrong. They also used blessings to promote health, prosperity, and fertility, invoking the aid of benevolent spirits and deities to ensure the well-being of their communities. One example includes blessings to grant a woman an easy pregnancy or childbirth. Did specific rituals or offerings exist to counteract the effects of curses, or were individuals left to suffer the consequences of supernatural wrath? By exploring the practice of curse casting, we gain a deeper understanding of how some Celts may have attempted to actively shape their world, not just through appeasement or protection, but through direct action, even at the expense of others. Were curses more than just superstition? The Celtic beliefs regarding the power of curses are complex, highlighting the complexities of their worldview and their relationship with the spirit world. Curses were not simply irrational outbursts or superstitious acts. They were active steps taken to cause tangible harm, reflecting a deep-seated belief in the power of words, intentions, and the interconnectedness of all things. While the previous sections have explored the power of curses, what about the tangible harm that the Celts may have inflicted upon themselves and others through their Samhain rituals? Beyond intention, did Samhain rituals actually cause harm? The answer, according to some accounts, is a chilling yes, as we move away from exploring the potential spiritual or psychological harm of the curses themselves to investigating tangible, verifiable consequences that some claim stemmed from ancient Samhain practices. The upcoming exploration isn't about theoretical evil, but about the alleged specific instances of death, disease, or societal disruption linked to Samhain. What chilling evidence exists that suggests more than just intention, but actual verifiable harm caused by Samhain rituals? To understand how Samhain rituals might have led to tangible harm, we must first consider how Celtic society attributed misfortune. In that world, illnesses, crop failures, or defeats in battle were often attributed to supernatural causes, reflecting a worldview where the material and spiritual realms were deeply intertwined. Actions within one world influenced the other, meaning a spiritual transgression could manifest as a physical ailment or societal crisis. The Celts did not separate the material and spiritual worlds, and so they believed that actions within each world influenced the other. This resulted in the concept of collective responsibility, where the actions of one individual could affect the entire community. If someone transgressed a societal taboo, it was believed that the entire community would suffer the consequences, whether through divine retribution, the anger of the spirits, or the disruption of the cosmic balance. But what exactly would happen to a community member who transgressed a societal taboo, and how would the Celts right the wrong? Within this framework of collective responsibility and a close relationship between the spiritual and material worlds, specific Samhain rituals could have led to tangible harm in at least two distinct ways. The first is through what we'll call the blighting curse, a malevolent ritual where curses might have been used to ruin crops, sicken livestock, or cause other forms of economic hardship. impacting entire communities. Imagine a community facing starvation because a rival tribe had cursed their fields, turning the soil barren and the harvest to rot. Then there was the concept of scapegoating. During especially difficult times, individuals might have been blamed for community misfortunes and subjected to violence or banishment during Samhain to cleanse the community. Imagine a family ostracized and driven from their village, accused of bringing bad luck upon their neighbors, left to fend for themselves in the harsh wilderness. It is important to emphasize that these ritualistic actions were not always intended for the greater good. Were these actions meant to appease the gods, or were they born of petty cruelty and personal vendettas? But is there concrete evidence linking specific Samhain rituals to tangible harm? Let's examine the evidence. Archaeological discoveries offer a glimpse into the potential violence and sacrifice that may have occurred during Samhain. Mass graves, deliberately destroyed settlements, and bodies showing signs of ritualistic killing or mistreatment have been found at various Celtic sites, though the interpretation of these finds remains complex and debated. For example, imagine a pit filled with human remains, the bones bearing marks of deliberate mutilation, discovered near an ancient Samhain gathering place. Does this provide evidence of sacrifice, or is it merely the result of warfare or disease? Then there are the folklore accounts of communities struck by misfortune following perceived violations of Samhain traditions. Stories abound of villages plagued by disease, famine, or raids after failing to appease the spirits or disrespecting the dead. The accounts often tell a story about failing to provide a proper offering, and then the ground refused to yield its crops. Historical accounts also share third-person accounts that may show a correlation between the practice of curses and community deaths. What tangible insights can the archaeological record provide, and how do they corroborate the more ethereal stories passed down through folklore? Analyzing these examples reveals the underlying social and psychological dynamics at play. The instances of harm can be interpreted as manifestations of social stress, economic hardship, or inter-tribal conflict, channeled through Samhain rituals and beliefs. The tendency to blame supernatural forces or scapegoated individuals diverted attention from more practical solutions to community problems. Accusations of witchcraft or curse casting were often used to exert power, control dissent, or settle personal scores. And what about the ethics of what the Celts were doing at this time? Was it right for them to place blame, or to think that harm could be caused by the actions of just one person? While the Celtic world may seem distant, the human tendency to associate misfortune with specific places or people persists in modern legends of cursed locations. But how did this manifest, and what are some modern-day interpretations? Consider this: modern ghost stories, urban legends, and beliefs about haunted places echo the ancient Celtic fears of malevolent spirits and the consequences of disrupting the balance between worlds. It seems as if curses can follow places, clinging to them like shadows. Does the human mind simply seek patterns and explanations for misfortune, or is there something more sinister at play when we attribute negative events to specific locations? It is important to acknowledge alternative explanations for the documented harm, emphasizing the difficulty of proving direct causation. Disease, famine, and inter-tribal conflict had natural causes that may have been unrelated to Samhain rituals. Some misfortune may have simply been coincidental, occurring around the time of Samhain, but not directly caused by it. Some accounts may have been written by Celts' enemies, or simply by people who didn't like them, meaning they may have ulterior motives for writing what they did. With all of this in mind, we must stress the need for caution and critical thinking when interpreting historical events. Can we definitively link specific Samhain rituals to tangible harm, or are we simply seeing correlations that mask more complex underlying factors? By exploring these accounts, we illuminate not just the rituals themselves, but their possible consequences, showcasing the complex interplay between belief, action, and tangible reality. Ultimately, the information we have uncovered links historical examples to psychological motivations and social structures. We must reiterate caution against simplistic interpretations and emphasize the need for continued investigation into the possible harms that the Celts inflicted. This investigation can lead to further knowledge and perhaps the exploration of why these practices are gone in the modern day, save for a few curious practitioners of the ancient traditions. But we're just scratching the surface. What we'll discover next is even more shocking. While the ancient Celts may have used Samhain rituals to inflict harm, their traditions are relegated to the annals of history for the most part. But what about the modern-day beliefs and practices surrounding curses? While druids no longer roam the forests, the human impulse to inflict harm through curses remains. How does it manifest today, and who are its targets? The focus will be on contemporary applications, demonstrating that the power of belief and the desire for retribution are not relics of the past, but forces still at play in the modern world. To understand how these impulses manifest today, we must first delve into the legacy of folk magic traditions carried through generations. Folk magic, unlike formal religious systems, is often localized and transmitted through families or small communities, which has preserved or adapted ancient beliefs about curses. Immigration patterns have been especially crucial, spreading different folk magic traditions to new regions, blending with existing belief systems, and creating syncretic practices. Consider how Italian stregheria blended with hoodoo in the American South. This confluence of traditions created new forms of folk magic, which have carried ancient beliefs about curses with them. Grimoires, spell books, and oral traditions all play a vital role in transmitting curse-casting knowledge, though their authority may vary from community to community. Does this shared knowledge connect various communities of people from around the world? Let's define the key elements of a modern curse in common, understandable terms. Intent is primary, and a modern curse-caster focuses their intent, whether through visualization, emotional intensity, or a focused mental state. This isn't simply wishing ill ill. It's a directed energy, a concentrated act of will. The more intense the caster's emotion, the more potent the curse is believed to be. For example, the intent of a curse changes its potential outcomes. A curse born of envy might aim to diminish someone's success, while a curse rooted in vengeance might seek to inflict suffering. The modern curse also involves ritual. This details components, including candles, herbs, sigils, spoken words, or symbolic actions. These rituals serve to focus the caster's intent and amplify their power. The use of black mirrors and other tools can enhance curses. By gazing into a black mirror, some practitioners believe they can open a portal to the spirit world, allowing them to communicate with entities that can carry out their curses. Then, of course, there are the targets. The common targets of modern curses include romantic rivals, professional competitors, perceived enemies, or even institutions seen as unjust. Were curses common in the past, but the ritual actions have changed? Indeed, some argue that the underlying impulse to curse has remained constant, while the methods have adapted to modern contexts. Some of those methods may include reverse curses, which is a common practice. Now, let's explore some modern examples of curses from various sources. Contemporary urban legends abound with cursed objects, haunted locations, or individuals targeted by malevolent spells. Consider the story of a cursed necklace that brings misfortune to anyone who wears it, or a house built on an ancient burial ground where residents experience paranormal activity. There are also personal accounts of individuals who believe they have been cursed or who claim to have cast curses. These accounts, often shared anonymously, provide a glimpse into the lived experience of those who engage with curses. These accounts may come from online forums, books, or interviews. And of course, there are online communities dedicated to sharing information about curse casting, offering spells, or seeking assistance with removing curses. These forums often have strict rules about what is allowed and not allowed, such as prohibiting curses that could cause serious harm or death. What is it about the internet that has resurrected the practice of curses? Analyzing these examples reveals the underlying power dynamics and psychological needs driving the creation and perpetuation of modern curses. Empowerment plays a key role, and curse casting can be seen as a way of regaining a sense of power or control in situations where individuals feel helpless or victimized. By casting a curse, they may feel like they are taking action, fighting back against those who have wronged them. Justice is also a motivator, as curses can be seen as a way of seeking justice for perceived wrongs, particularly when formal systems of justice are seen as inadequate or unfair. Someone who has been cheated out of their inheritance might resort to a curse to punish the perpetrator. And of course, curse casting provides an outlet for intense emotions such as anger, resentment, or grief. By directing their negative emotions towards a specific target, they may find a sense of catharsis or release. But what are the psychological benefits and potential drawbacks of such emotional release? But what are the ethical ramifications of attempting to inflict harm through supernatural means? That's our next area of exploration. We will debate karmic consequences, the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what ye will, and differing moral codes. What one should do versus what one can do may be completely different. It is important to acknowledge the counterargument that curses are merely a form of psychological manipulation with no real-world effect. Discussing the scientific evidence, or lack thereof, for the effectiveness of curses can make a person question the existence of the practice. The reason that belief alone may cause a curse to come true is because they are simply a form of psychological suggestion with no supernatural power. A person who believes they have been cursed may experience anxiety, depression, or other psychological symptoms, which can then manifest as physical ailments. Regardless of their physical effects, curses can have a powerful psychological impact on both the caster and the target. But doesn't this prove that it is a true curse if one person is causing harm to another? By understanding modern practices, we underscore the enduring human capacity not only for belief, but for actively attempting to influence real ill, for good or ill. Folk magic traditions link to psychological needs and ethical considerations. But what is the future of the curse? What new forms will it take in an increasingly technological world? As we reflect on the evolution of curses, we see not just a shift in practice, but a reflection of humanity's enduring struggle with power, justice, and the darker aspects of our own nature. As we move forward, we must question, how can curses exist in the modern world, and will they persist in the future? Having explored the mechanics and targets of modern curses, we now confront a more fundamental question. Is it ever ethical to cast one, even if curses are seen as just or deserved? The act of intentionally inflicting harm raises serious ethical questions. But what constitutes harm in the context of a curse, and who decides what is just or deserved? This is not a simple question of right and wrong, but a descent into the labyrinthine world of moral philosophy. To navigate this, we must approach the topic with a balanced perspective, acknowledging the diverse ethical frameworks that have shaped our understanding of morality and retribution. To understand the ethical landscape surrounding curses, we must first examine the diverse moral codes that have influenced views on retribution throughout history. In Eastern religions, the concept of karma dictates that every action has consequences, rippling through time and affecting the individual's future. A curse in this framework might be seen as accelerating or intensifying karmic retribution, but does that make it ethically justifiable? In contrast, the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what ye will, provides a clear guideline for ethical behavior in modern paganism, seemingly precluding any act intended to cause harm. But how does one define harm? Does it only encompass physical injury, or does it also include emotional distress, financial ruin, or social isolation? The Code of Hammurabi, with its eye for an eye mentality, represents yet another approach to justice, where retribution is seen as a direct and proportionate response to the offense. However, this concept has been challenged by various religions over time, advocating for forgiveness, compassion, and restorative justice. Has the concept of ethical practice evolved over time, and will it continue to do so? To further dissect this ethical dilemma, let's examine different ethical frameworks and how they might apply to the act of curse casting. Utilitarianism, for example, posits that the best course of action is the one that maximizes overall happiness and minimizes harm. Could curse casting ever be justified from a utilitarian perspective? Perhaps, if it could be argued that a curse inflicted on a dangerous individual prevents greater harm to society, but can that really be achieved? Deontology, on the other hand, emphasizes adherence to moral rules and duties, regardless of the consequences. From a deontological viewpoint, actions like curse casting might be seen as inherently wrong, violating fundamental principles of non-violence or respect for others. Virtue ethics focuses on character and moral virtues. How might virtue ethics view curse casting? Perhaps as a reflection of negative character traits such as vengefulness, anger, or a lack of compassion. Does the very act of casting a curse betray a character flaw, regardless of the intended outcome? Individuals might attempt to justify curse casting within different ethical frameworks, often appealing to situational ethics and moral relativism. Some might argue that a curse is justified to prevent a greater harm, such as stopping a dangerous criminal or protecting vulnerable people. But who decides what constitutes a greater good? And what safeguards are in place to prevent abuse or misjudgment? Would these curses have to be approved in a ritual format, judged by a council of wise practitioners? Others might believe a curse is justified as a means of delivering karmic justice to someone who has committed heinous acts, acting as an instrument of cosmic balance. But is it ethical to assume the role of cosmic judge and jury? Situations may also arise where individuals believe a curse is justified as a form of self-defense against perceived attacks, protecting themselves or their loved ones from harm. But where does self-defense end and aggression begin? The complexities and potential for rationalization are endless. The potential pitfalls and ethical gray areas surrounding curse casting are numerous. Firstly, the question of subjectivity looms large. What one person considers justified, another might see as cruel and unwarranted. Is there an objective standard for determining when a curse is ethically permissible? Proportionality is another critical consideration. Does the punishment fit the crime? Is it ethical to inflict severe suffering for a minor offense, even if the offender deserves some form of retribution? And then there are the unintended consequences. Can a curse influence others and cause unintended harm? What if a curse intended for one person inadvertently affects their family, friends, or community? And who is responsible when a curse goes awry? Is it the curse caster, the intended target, or some other intervening force? These are not questions with easy answers. These theoretical frameworks have real-world consequences, particularly in communities where the belief in curses is pervasive. In such contexts, the fear of curses can lead to social isolation, paranoia, and even violence, as individuals attempt to protect themselves from perceived threats. Accusations of curse casting can also be used as a tool for social control, silencing dissent or punishing those who deviate from social norms. But when one person is cursed, does that affect everyone else, creating a ripple effect of fear and suspicion? To truly understand the impact of curses, we must delve into the social and psychological dimensions, exploring how these beliefs shape individual behavior and community dynamics. It is important to acknowledge the counterargument that everyone has free will, and even if curses exist, the cursed individual maintains the ability to make their own choices. Therefore, the influence of a curse is limited by the individual's own agency and resilience. However, how do curses affect free will? Do they subtly nudge individuals towards certain choices, or do they completely override their ability to make rational decisions. There is a complex interplay between external influence and complete control. While curses may create obstacles or challenges, they do not necessarily determine the individual's destiny. Ultimately, the decision to cast a curse involves navigating an ethical quagmire with no easy answers. While theoretical frameworks and moral codes can provide guidance, the specific circumstances of each case must be carefully considered. The potential for unintended consequences, the subjectivity of justice, and the complexities of free will all contribute to the ethical challenges. The question isn't simply whether one can cast a curse, but whether one should. As we continue our exploration, we must grapple with the psychological and social implications of these beliefs, recognizing the power of curses to shape individual lives and entire communities. But what are the psychological implications of believing that you are cursed? The ethical quandaries of curse casting are compelling, but what happens when a community genuinely believes it's under a curse? The effects, though not necessarily supernatural, can be devastating, leading to real-world societal breakdown through fear, distrust, and isolation. Even if the validity of curses is debated, their perceived existence can act as a potent societal force, capable of fracturing communities and disrupting social order. We will investigate the impact of this belief as a societal phenomenon, irrespective of whether the curses themselves are real. To understand the potential for societal breakdown rooted in the belief in curses, it is important to look at historical events where beliefs in witchcraft or curses led to mass hysteria and social disintegration. The Salem witch trials in the late 17th century stands as a chilling testament to how fear, suspicion, and religious extremism can converge to create a climate of terror, wrongful accusations, and social disintegration. Fueled by a combination of social anxieties, religious fervor, and the accusations of a group of young women, the witch trials spiraled out of control, leading to the execution of 20 innocent people and the imprisonment of many more. But how did the accusations begin, and why did they gain such traction in the community? Publications like the Malleus Maleficarum, a medieval treatise on witchcraft, further fueled the flames of persecution, providing a pseudo-scientific justification for the existence of witches and advocating for their extermination. This book, filled with fantastical descriptions of demonic pacts and rituals, served as a manual for witch hunters, shaping their methods of interrogation and torture. The witch hunts in Europe during the medieval and early modern periods offer further examples of how fear and superstition can lead to mass hysteria. These outbreaks of persecution, often fueled by social tensions, religious extremism, and a fear of the unknown, resulted in the torture and execution of thousands of innocent people, primarily women, who were accused of consorting with the devil. But what specific forms of societal disruption are caused by the belief in curses? How does such a belief erode the very fabric of social cohesion? One of the most immediate and pervasive consequences is the rise of fear within the community. People become afraid to go out at night, fearing encounters with malevolent spirits or individuals believed to possess supernatural powers. Daily routines are disrupted, and a sense of unease permeates every aspect of life. This fear quickly morphs into distrust, as accusations of curse casting create deep divisions among community members, fracturing long-standing social bonds. Neighbors begin to suspect neighbors, friends turn on friends, and families are torn apart by suspicion and paranoia. Accusations can lead to the shunning of specific community members, who are ostracized and isolated from social interaction. This social isolation can lead to further psychological distress for those targeted, creating a vicious cycle of fear and despair. But does society ever attempt to isolate the entire community, or is just the cursed person isolated? If distrust and fear are rampant, this can damage the local economy, as businesses suffer from decreased patronage and individuals become hesitant to invest in the community. Property values plummet, and the overall economic outlook becomes bleak, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and despair. In modern times, the belief in curses continues to exert a disruptive influence on communities, workplaces, and online spaces, albeit often in more subtle forms. In small towns or rural communities, accusations of witchcraft or curse casting can still lead to social division, property damage, or even violence. In one anonymized account, a small rural community was torn apart by accusations that a local woman was practicing witchcraft and casting curses on her neighbors. The accusations, fueled by gossip and superstition, led to the woman being ostracized from the community, her property vandalized, and ultimately her forced relocation. The workplace is not immune to such phenomena. Employees who believe they are being cursed by disgruntled colleagues may experience decreased morale, productivity, and increased conflict. Imagine a workplace where a series of unfortunate events, such as equipment malfunctions, missed deadlines, and interpersonal conflicts, are attributed to a curse cast by a disgruntled former employee. This can lead to a climate of fear and suspicion, as employees become wary of each other and productivity plummets. What happens when work productivity declines and management gets involved? Online communities provide fertile ground for conspiracy theories about curses, where members engage in harassment, doxing, or other forms of online abuse against perceived, cursed individuals or groups. Consider an online gaming community where a player is accused of using curses or hacks to gain an unfair advantage. This can lead to a barrage of online harassment, doxing, and even real-world threats against the player and their family. These are tangible consequences of belief, even if the cause is only perceived. What are the underlying psychological and sociological dynamics at play in these examples? How does the belief in curses take root and spread through a community? The belief in curses can reinforce existing power structures, as accusations are often used to target marginalized or dissenting individuals. Those who are already vulnerable or lack social power may be particularly susceptible to being accused of witchcraft or curse casting, further entrenching existing inequalities. This belief creates a climate of fear and suspicion, making it difficult for individuals to trust one another or to challenge authority. When people are afraid of being accused of witchcraft or curse casting, they are less likely to speak out against injustice or to question those in power, perpetuating a cycle of oppression. Prolonged exposure to fear and distrust can negatively impact mental health, leading to anxiety, depression, and other psychological disorders. Individuals living in communities where the belief in curses is pervasive may experience chronic stress, sleep disturbances, and difficulty concentrating, all of which can have detrimental effects on their overall well-being. But how does this prolonged exposure to fear impact the minds of children? The belief in curses can tear communities apart, but are there ways to uncurse them? To rebuild trust and foster healing in the wake of such divisions, while some may believe that only a powerful counter-curse can undo the damage, the solution may lie in more terrestrial approaches. Perhaps the answer lies in promoting critical thinking, fostering empathy, and addressing underlying social inequalities. But can those things truly combat a deep-seated belief? However, it's important to acknowledge that belief in curses, while potentially harmful, can also provide a sense of community or empowerment for some individuals. For marginalized groups who feel powerless in the face of oppression, shared belief in curses can create a sense of belonging and shared identity. Curse casting can provide a sense of agency for individuals who feel they have no other means of influencing their lives or the world around them. While this can be empowering, it's crucial to ensure that such expressions are responsible and do not cause harm to others. But how can a community ensure that responsible expression isn't just a new form of oppression? Ultimately, addressing the societal impact of belief in curses requires a multifaceted approach that combines critical thinking, empathy, and a commitment to social justice. Even if curses lack supernatural validity, the belief in them can inflict measurable damage on a community, shutting down social interaction and breeding distrust. The social, political, and spiritual environment must be receptive to the belief in the curse for the curse to have an effect. Therefore, a community's belief in curses can completely shut it down, but what can be done to prevent this from happening? While the previous sections explored the nature and potential societal impact of curses, this section turns to the equally compelling question: how can these perceived supernatural threats be neutralized, reversed, or at least mitigated? Whether the threat is real, imagined, or somewhere in between, the human desire to break free from their perceived influence is undeniable, particularly as Halloween approaches and the veil between worlds thins. We will investigate how individuals and communities have sought to regain control, restore balance, and find solace from the fear and anxiety generated by the belief in curses. To understand how people have historically combated curses, it is crucial to examine ancient Celtic practices, particularly those associated with Samhain. Druids, as skilled practitioners and intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds, played a central role in countering curses and restoring harmony. Their interventions often involved elaborate rituals, counter spells, and appeasement offerings designed to appease the offended spirits or deities believed to be the source of the curse. Protective charms and amulets were also widely used, crafted from specific materials and imbued with symbolic power to deflect curses or reverse their effects. For instance, certain stones, herbs, or animal parts were believed to possess inherent protective qualities, warding off negative energies and ill fortune. Ritual cleansing practices were equally important, involving bathing in sacred water, smudging with specific herbs like sage or juniper, or performing purification ceremonies to remove spiritual contamination and restore balance. One specific ritual involved the druid burning a concoction of herbs that was believed to ward off evil spirits. The intent was to purify the space and create a barrier against negative influences. It was performed by druids who would chant specific incantations to empower the cleansing properties of the herbs. These remediation methods can be broadly categorized as spiritual cleansing, curse reversal, and divine intervention, each with its own distinct approach and techniques. Spiritual cleansing aims to remove negative energy or spiritual contamination from individuals, objects, or locations. This might involve smudging with sage, a practice believed to purify the energy field and dispel negative influences. Crystals, such as amethyst or selenite, are also used for their purported ability to absorb and transmute negative energy. Energy healing techniques, like Reiki or pranic healing, work to restore the flow of vital energy within the body, clearing blockages and promoting overall well-being. Conversely, curse reversal practices are specifically designed to send a curse back to its originator or break its power. Mirror spells, for example, use the reflective properties of mirrors to bounce the curse back to its source. Binding rituals involve symbolically tying up or restricting the power of the curse, preventing it from manifesting. The use of symbolic objects, such as thorns, nails, or black candles, can also amplify the intent to reverse the curse and neutralize its effects. An example of an incantation may include the phrase, "As you have willed, so shall it be reversed, return to sender." Divine intervention seeks assistance from deities, angels, or other benevolent spiritual entities to break curses. This might involve offering prayers, making offerings, or performing rituals to invoke the aid of these higher powers. In modern times, uncursing practices continue to evolve, with modern witches and pagans employing a variety of spells, rituals, and techniques to break curses, always emphasizing ethical considerations and responsible practice. Many witches incorporate elements of folk magic, drawing upon traditional remedies and charms to remove curses. These practices often involve the use of herbs, candles, and symbolic objects, combined with focused intention and visualization. One such folk magic tradition involves creating a witch's ladder, a a string of knots tied with feathers, beads, and other symbolic items, each knot representing a specific intention to break the curse. The latter is then burned, releasing the intention into the universe. For example, a curse may be removed by someone who has had it placed on them by gathering rosemary, sage, and lavender to create a circle around them, and then burn the herbs with an apology to the spirits who cast the curse. It is believed that this creates an opportunity for negotiation with the spirit world in order to cease the curse. Various religious traditions offer specific prayers, blessings, or rituals to break curses or remove evil influences. In Christianity, exorcism rituals are performed to cast out demons or evil spirits believed to be afflicting an individual. In Judaism, prayers for healing and protection are recited, and amulets or talismans are worn to ward off evil influences. These real-world applications, though varying in their approach, share a common thread: a belief in the power of intention, ritual, and spiritual intervention to overcome negative forces. Analyzing these uncursing practices reveals the underlying psychological and sociological dynamics at play. What shifts in the power dynamic occur when someone attempts to uncurse themselves or their community? The act of seeking remediation, whether through a spell, a ritual, or a prayer, can empower individuals to take control of their lives and challenge the perceived power of the curse. This can lead to a shift in the power dynamic between the victim and the cursor, with the victim reclaiming agency and self-determination. The connection between belief and empowerment is also crucial. Those who genuinely believe in the efficacy of uncursing practices are more likely to experience positive outcomes, regardless of whether the curse is objectively real. This highlights the power of the placebo effect, where belief in a treatment can lead to tangible improvements in well-being. Has the person seeking to break a curse built a support system around them? The presence of a supportive community can provide emotional validation, encouragement, and practical assistance, strengthening the individual's resolve and increasing their chances of success. However, could the support system actually perpetuate belief in the curse? While the desire to break free from curses is understandable, not all uncursing methods are safe or effective. Some can even make the situation worse. Certain practices can backfire, leading to unintended consequences, or exploit vulnerable individuals seeking quick fixes and false promises. The next section will explore the potential pitfalls and dangers associated with uncursing practices, examining how well-intentioned efforts can sometimes have detrimental effects. Is it ever safe to assume someone is cursed? Can a skeptic perform an uncursing ritual? The spectrum of beliefs surrounding curses ranges from complete skepticism to unwavering faith. Some individuals dismiss curses as mere superstition, while others firmly believe in their power and influence. This raises important questions about the role of belief, intention, and cultural context in shaping our understanding and response to curses. There's a need for respect and sensitivity. Even if one does not personally believe in curses, it's crucial to approach the beliefs of others with empathy and understanding, recognizing that their experiences and perspectives may be shaped by cultural or personal factors. Is it ethical to profit off of someone's perceived curse? In the end, whether curses are seen as real threats or psychological constructs, the need to address the fear and anxiety they generate is undeniable. Responsible uncursing involves empowering individuals, fostering critical thinking, and promoting healing, not perpetuating harmful beliefs or exploiting vulnerabilities. The complexities surrounding uncursing practices highlight the enduring human fascination with the unseen forces that shape our lives, whether those forces are supernatural or psychological. But even if the intention behind the remediation methods are pure, what happens when things go horribly wrong? As we draw the veil on our exploration of Halloween's sinister origins, it becomes clear that the innocent celebrations of today are but a faint echo of the ancient rituals of Samhain. The journey through Celtic traditions, pagan practices, and the evolution of modern customs has revealed a complex tapestry woven with threads of fear, reverence, and a profound connection to the spirit world. What began as an attempt to understand the roots of a beloved holiday has led us to confront the enduring power of ancient beliefs and the subtle ways they continue to shape our world. At its core, Halloween, as it is known today, can be traced back to Samhain, a time when the lines between the living and the dead blurred and the veil between worlds thinned, a time when the Celts tried desperately to protect themselves from the darkness. This blurring of boundaries is a recurring theme, as is our modern-day need to connect to the fears of a society long gone. The bonfires, the costumes, the offerings all were born from a deep-seated need to appease unseen forces and navigate the precarious transition between seasons. Halloween exists because of traditions that occurred so long ago, traditions that resonate with human experiences that are, in their own way, timeless. But Samhain, and now Halloween, speak to something far more profound than just the changing of seasons. It speaks to the enduring human fascination with death, spirits, and the supernatural, a fascination that transcends time and culture. It underscores our inherent need to understand and cope with fear, both the tangible and the imagined. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, rituals like Samhain provided a framework for making sense of the unknown, for connecting with something larger than ourselves, and for finding meaning and connection in the face of mortality. Has society truly forgotten the need to connect with the spirit world, or is the need to appease other entities stronger than ever, merely masked by the trappings of modernity? Moreover, do we still risk othering people who are different from us, leading to situations such as those in the past when people would be wrongfully blamed for societal issues? As we reflect on the journey from Samhain to Halloween, we must consider what has been lost and what has been gained in this transformation. Have we sacrificed a genuine connection to the spirit world in favor of sanitized celebrations and commercialized traditions? Or have we found new ways to honor the past while creating something meaningful for the present? The answer, perhaps, lies in finding a balance between honoring traditions and creating something new, between acknowledging the darkness and embracing the light, between remembering the past and stepping boldly into the future. If this exploration of Halloween's origins has sparked your curiosity, we invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. By subscribing, you're not just signing up for more videos. You're joining a community of like-minded individuals interested in exploring the darker and more mysterious aspects of history and culture. Stay tuned for upcoming videos on related topics, such as explorations of other ancient festivals or dives into specific paranormal phenomena. Remember, our channel offers a unique blend of historical research, esoteric exploration, and thought-provoking analysis, offering a journey into the unknown that will challenge your perspectives and expand your understanding of the world. Stay curious. If the spirits allow it.